Hokage, Chronicle of the True Farewell. Hello again, dear adventurers of the multiverse. Thanks for joining us once more on this epic journey. Remember, this story is pure science fiction from our wild imagination, so don't go trying to summon dragons in your backyard. The rights of this amazing novel belong entirely to its original author, we are only the narrators. Do you want more adventures? Show some love to our YouTube channel with a subscription and a like, and if you want exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting for you with open arms. Chapter 51 Deception, Shock, and Falling Off a Cliff. Dang, you bravely confronted Kokuzu, who looked down on you for your poverty, and gained a random skill from him, secret technique, earth grudge stitching, experienced, your heart steel level has increased, the flowing flame greatsword slashed down. Carrying with it an unparalleled storm, fire, and tail flames, it plummeted down. It slammed into the water barrier Kokuzu had raised from the ground. The massive, seemingly imposing water barrier, standing 6 meters high, was sliced through like a hot knife through butter by this strike. A sizzling sound, violent steam surged forth, then was swept away by the gust of wind brought on by the flowing flame greatsword. The field suddenly cleared. Uchiha Chi also saw what lay beyond the water barrier, his pupils shrinking. At this moment, Kokuzu's heart had been replaced with a water-attributed one. The earth grudge masked monster, hardened all over, leaped high, attempting to block Uchiha Chi's flowing flame longsword. Uchiha Chi had assumed that Kokuzu's 3 masked monsters, fire, wind, and lightning, were preparing to engage him. Now, they had their backs to him. The next moment, Earthly Rathew's final blue light cannon roared out. A fusion of fire, wind, and lightning, a massive cannon continuously strengthening each other, it blasted in the exact opposite direction of Uchiha Chi, colliding with the barrier of the super death battle barrier. The barrier's light curtain rippled and deformed, bulging and cracking under the force of the light cannon. The entire cliff face enveloped by the barrier began to crumble, forming vast chasms and tottering. Seeing this, Uchiha Chi's eyes widened, his pupils suddenly shrinking to a point. The skin on his face twisted horribly, and veins on his forehead bulged. With his hands struggling to control the flowing flame greatsword, he slashed down at Kokuzu's body. Feelings of betrayal and impending despair surged wildly through his heart. What are you doing, Kokuzu? What are you doing, you coward? Are you trying to escape, huh? At this moment, Uchiha Chi had given everything, determined to fight to the death with his formidable foe. And yet, at this moment, Kokuzu actually wanted to run? He actually wanted to run? What a joke. If he ran, then Uchiha Chi, separated from the battle and burned alive by his own jutsu, would this situation still be safe? Uchiha Chi didn't know, and there was no way to gamble. So, with a frenzied look in his eyes, he forcibly controlled his body, which was already at its limit, and leaped forward. Come back, huh, you coward, come and fight me to the last drop of blood. Uchiha Chi's eyes were bloodshot, his scarlet Sharingan wide open, emanating a ferocious, demonic, and insane aura. He was in midair, twisting his waist and lowering his head, spinning and swirling. He rolled, swinging the flowing flame sword in a circular motion and sweeping it down. Kokuzu's earth-style, earth-wrath masked monster was forced deep into the cliff face by this blow, then spun outwards, falling into the air to meet the return strike. This return strike brought Kokuzu and the other 3 masked monsters within its range. This power is truly astonishing. Kokuzu gazed up at the divine-like sword, his eyes narrowed, a deep fear flickering in them. Then, a sneer played on his lips, and he formed hand seals. But I still win. The flowing flame greatsword descended, sweeping across Kokuzu's form. His eyes widened, and his body began to evaporate from the waist. Then, it transformed into a puddle of water. The moment the water hit the ground, a sudden roar erupted. A dense, countless number of earth grudge-used tentacles pierced the surface of the earth, surging wildly and wrapping around the flowing flame greatsword. This was the earth grudge-u, hiding its life beneath the battlefield, its dark tentacles lurking in the darkness. The sword slashed down, scorching the dense masses of tentacles, but beneath the surface, they continued to surge forth, one after another, forcibly slowing the greatsword's circular slash. With just that tiny opening, the earth grudge-u's final blue cannon blasted through the barrier of the super death battle barrier. Kokuzu leaped from the puddle of water on the cliff face, summoned the 3 masked monsters, and leaped through the gap in the barrier. Then, he dove forward and dashed, before anyone could react, towards the old, Crooked tree in the center of the cliff. Hidden, run, Uchiha Chi's furious voice echoed from within the barrier. The three people outside, startled by the sudden change, finally reacted. Terumi was the first to recover. She turned, catching sight of Kokuzu charging towards her, and instinctively began to form hand seals. However, a hand, entangled in Earthwrath's tentacles, burst from the ground above the cliff face, grasped Terumi's calf, and pulled her down, interrupting her attempts to form seals. Hidden, perched on the tree trunk, gazed left and right, seeing only the bottomless abyss on either side. A wave of despair suddenly surged within him. What the hell, where am I supposed to run? With faith in Uchiha Chi, Hidden simply closed his eyes and leaped from the tree. Shannon, observing this, was startled and immediately lunged down the cliff face, attempting to catch Hidden. However, Kokuzu was one step ahead of him. He twisted his waist and swung his hand, an earthly wrath's arm stretched out, tangling with Hidden and pulling him under his armpit. Hidden finally opened his eyes, a look of astonishment on his face. Kokuzu didn't exchange a single word with his future immortal partner. He simply slapped him on the back of the head, knocking him unconscious. Then, he leaped several times, from the cliff face to the city wall, and then from the wall again. In a short while, they reached the entrance to the underground caverns of the evil god cult's headquarters. Shannon watched the scene, his eyes narrowed, and he paused. When Kokuzu grabbed Hidden, at this distance, he could have activated his physical transformation and the 8 gates to stop him, at least to engage in a fight. But for some unknown reason, he paused. After the shock, the scene returned to calm. The full moon faded, the wind howled, and the barrier that stretched heaven and earth crumbled. The flaming giant sword in Uchiha Chi's hand disintegrated into a pool of wildfire, dispersing with the wind. He knelt in the cliff face, not a single piece of skin intact, crimson flesh exposed. Thick oil from the burned skin splattered and dripped across his charred body. The tightly grasped tune tore off a piece of flesh, plume of smoke, and plummeted to the bottom of the cliff, shattering into a pool of molten iron. All the chakra in his body had been completely burned out. Uchiha Chi turned his head blankly, staring in the direction of Kokuzu's escape. An expression of rage immediately crossed his face. His eyes were bloodshot, his teeth were gnashing, and his fists were clenched tightly. But beneath this expression, a hint of panic lingered. Ultimately, all his intense emotions vanished under a sudden sense of powerlessness. What would happen next? He fought to the bitter end. Could he return home? But the enemy escaped, and he ultimately died by his own hand. Would this be covered by insurance? Would Boss Shyandeo be so stingy? Will Fiden still become that crazy follower of the evil god? Is everything I have done worthwhile? One question after another emerged in his mind, urgently needing an answer. But he no longer had the ability to think. His brain seemed to have burned out. His body was completely unable to move. He could no longer hear any sound in his ears because his eardrums had been burned through. Only silence remained, only silence. Uchiha Chi closed his eyes powerlessly, and the last trace of chakra on the soles of his feet dissipated. He fell headfirst down the cliff. The strange thing was that he did not feel the pain of falling into a puddle of rotten dog shit. Instead, it was like falling into a soft and warm pink marshmallow cloud. Please collect, recommend, and read. Bang bang bang. Chapter 52, Decision on a Rainy Night. A heavy rain was drizzling outside the window. The raindrops trickled down the glass, like lines of black blood streaking down. The darkness in the distance was so thick that nothing could be seen. Uchiha Chi opened his eyes and saw the long mist yet familiar blue checkered ceiling. The only light in the narrow sampan room came from the lit phone beside him, which was playing a slightly noisy song. The song was fine, but the occasional wetchet pop-up sound always interrupted the music. C picked up the phone and glanced at it casually. I have the manuscript 6 yuan per 1,000 words. Do you want to take it? Let's revise the draft a little bit. Or should we stick with the first version? 100 yuan is still money. I know you're short of money, you're sick, and your fucking battery was stolen, but I really can't spare any money right now. I'll definitely pay you back the 6,000 yuan. What do you mean by that? Did you see me being cool while delivering food at the foot massage parlor? What do you know? This guy's done for. I've blocked him. Are you there? Just pay the rent. Ahem. C climbed out of bed, coughing, and picked up his phone. He wanted to transfer 300 yuan to the landlord, then send a kowtow emoji and say something nice to wait for half a month. But then a low balance alert popped up on his phone. He was silent for a moment, then opened his mobile banking app to see if his 500 million yuan had arrived. The clearest glimpse of his bank balance. 5.26. It felt like a knife stabbing him in the heart. Fuck it, was this all a dream? C sighed, recalling the details of his year in the ninja world and his dream. It felt quite real. But life still depends on money. Uchiha Chi patted his cheek, cheered himself up, grinned, and opened WeChat. He first deleted the WeChat account of his only friend in this city, Good Brother, and decided to never have anything to do with that jerk again. Then he opened the chat windows of the individual traders and replied to them one by one. Thanks, brother. I'll code 10,000 tonight, okay, boss. I told you have a good eye for talent. The first version is amazing. I'll make some changes. After calculating his profits, Uchiha Chi sent another text message to the electric scooter seller. He promised to bring money over tomorrow morning, rent a battery for 150 yuan, buy breakfast, and then continue his work. There's a subsidy for a rainstorm tomorrow, so I'd conservatively estimate I'd make 200 yuan. Tonight, I'd buy the landlord a carton of milk for 50 yuan and say a few nice things. He probably won't be evicted. Just keep this up for another month, and life will definitely get better. Ahem. After doing all this, Uchiha Chi scrambled out of bed, slipped on his slippers, and stood by the window. He looked up at the dark sky outside, a pitch-black darkness where nothing could be seen. At that moment, Uchiha Chi thought, being alone in this strange city, without friends or family, struggling to make a living. Especially at this late hour, it felt a bit lonely. But Uchiha Chi put the thought out of his mind half a minute later. He didn't have time to dwell on such a thing. If he didn't make a lasting effort to secure tomorrow's supplies, he'd starve to death. Pulling his spirits together, Uchiha Chi pulled a can of Pepsi, his essential spiritual food, from the small refrigerator by the window. With a snap, he pulled the ring open and gulped it down. Suddenly, he frowned. The more he drank, the more it tasted off. Why was this cola so fishy sweet? Was it expired? Frowning, Uchiha Chi looked at the cola, his vision suddenly blurry, the scene before him distorted. The cola bottle in his hand suddenly transformed into the face of a young woman with emerald green eyes. She clutched Uchiha Chi's head and anxiously cried out in his ear, "No, don't die." Outside, the torrential rain continued to fall, spreading and flowing ferociously across the glass, like lines of wildly dancing, fishy black blood. Faster and faster it flowed. Crack. The glass, pounded furiously by the torrential rain, cracked and scarred like spider webs. Uchiha Chi clutched the Coke bottle, his breath catching. It felt like something was gripping his neck, squeezing his heart. Then, a fierce squeeze. It felt like death. But, the next moment, nothing happened. Uchiha Chi's eyes flashed. He was standing in his rental apartment again. Just then, a subtitle appeared in his field of vision. Employee, Uchiha Chi, you have died accidentally while saving the troubled world. Now, you have two choices. 1. Collect your insurance compensation. 500 million RMB, and you will be resurrected in your native world. 2. Resurrect in the ninja world and continue to be a hero sent from heaven to save this troubled world. This opportunity only comes once. Note, if you choose the second option, your coverage will be reduced to 50 million RMB, but the policy terms will remain in effect. He fell silent as he looked at the two options before him. Especially when he saw the word resurrection in option 1. Uchiha Chi's entire body trembled, a burst of pain surging through his head. Memories surged through his dusty heart. Resurrection, those two pale words starkly told him the truth. The real him was dead. Uchiha Chi slumped to the ground, his head in his hands. His pupils fluttered as he took in the familiar objects in his rented apartment. The torrential rain outside the window, the cramped room, the yellowed walls, the bed with a missing leg, the moldy table. Finally, his gaze fell on the no-name computer on the table, which had been with him for a year. A sudden chill ran through his heart. He remembered, everything that had just happened was something he had experienced before. That night, sick and exhausted, he confidently made plans for the future. However, at the very first step in implementing his plan, something went wrong. First, there was the old companion who had been with him for a year, the no-name computer. Just as he was about to use this second-hand E5-2620 Collector's Edition foreign junk CPU, bought for 500 yuan on Xianyu, a popular online gambling site, which even allowed him to play League of Legends and open Adobe Photoshop, a truly amazing piece of hardware, to fulfill his job as a casual trader and earn enough money to rent a battery the next day. It started smoking and stopped working. He was so depressed that he spent the entire night, even feeling even sicker. The next day, with no money, he couldn't rent a battery and stood in the pouring rain, feeling lost. When he returned to his rental apartment, he found all his belongings had been dumped at the door by the landlord. The series of setbacks nearly brought him to the brink of collapse. However, with a 5 yuan in his pocket, C forced himself to pull himself together and shouted, "Back then, Chen Daozi won 37 million yuan with 20 yuan. Today, I can win 500 million yuan with just 5 yuan. He then decided to buy himself a bucket of instant noodles and treat himself to a good meal. Then, he pulled himself together and went begging under the overpass to raise his first starting capital. However, when crossing the street, a subtitle suddenly popped up in front of him. It was detected that the willpower of this earth creature meets the recruitment standards of Shinodao Company. Are you willing to become a tough guy sent from heaven? Secret Stories 1, Shinodao Company Recruitment Notice. Position, tough guy sent from heaven. Requirements, a virgin who can still hold on to his will and hope after enduring pain, despair, and continuous blows. Job description, helping people in troubled times. Salary, SSS level talent, huge mission commissions, and a complete Shinodao insurance system. Lost volume. Chapter 53, with such fighting spirit, he is simply a tough guy sent from heaven. In the land of hot water, beneath the cliffs outside the evil god cult's headquarters, the cliff face was now covered in scars, a spider web of cracks crisscrossing it. Jagged boulders clung to the cliff face, precariously teetering on the brink of collapse. Terumi Mei cradled the battered Uchiha Chi, her gaze fixed anxiously on Shannon, who was examining him. "How is he?" Shannon frowned, his fingers gleaming with a scalpel, a beam of blue chakra, as he sliced through the meridian nodes of Uchiha Chi's body. It felt more like he was dissecting a mouse than examining a patient. After a moment, he smacked his lips, his frown deepening. "Speak? Can he be saved?" Terumi Mei asked anxiously. Shannon took a deep breath, raised his head with an air of annoyance, and replied calmly, "As you can see, he's already dead." How could this be?" Terumi Mei's heart sank at the words. "What? Isn't it normal for people to die in the ninja world? Is there something special about him?" Shannon glanced at the expression on Terumi Mei's face and asked with a sneer, "As I recall, you've known each other for less than a day." Terumi Mei pursed her lips, her eyes flickering as she gazed at the boy's face. Shannon was right. Before yesterday, she had never met this boy. She didn't know his name, his appearance, his personality, or his ambitious ideals. But this boy, the one who tore up the Holy Communion and fought to the death in anger over injustice, the one who pledged under the moonlight to establish the ninja way, the one who revealed his ambition, and the figure who leaped and slashed down with a great sword of flowing flame in the flames before dawn. As graceful as a startled swan, as graceful as a flying dragon. These 4 words etched themselves deeply into the girl's heart, words she couldn't let go of. Uchiha Chi. She found it hard to accept that such a stunning boy had ended up like this. In her mind, the boy should march toward the dawn, heading even further, until they finally met on the battlefield again. But was that the end? Terumi Mei felt a pang of pain in her stomach. "Tisk, stop looking so sad." Shannon shook his head and suddenly said, "He can still be saved." Terumi Mei looked up in surprise, her eyebrows raised. "Didn't you say he was dead?" "I said he was dead, not that I couldn't save him." Shannon crouched and took a step forward, a chuck scalpel flashing in his fingers. Then, as Terumi Mei stared at him in shock, he sliced open Uchiha Chi's chest, revealing a heart, charred to charcoal but still beating. "Look at this kid, he's a freak," Shannon marveled, pointing at the squirming, throbbing buds on the cross-section. "I've never seen anyone with such a strong will to fight. Even though he's dead, his body still craves battle. And he's constantly maintaining my forbidden technique. Flesh regeneration, what a hunk." And this, Shannon pinched a vibrantly dancing black thread from his blood-spurting chest. "This is the secret technique of Tokigakure village, earthly wrath suturing. It perfectly sutures his blood vessels, preventing blood loss, coupled with flesh regeneration's constant blood production and replacement. These 2 techniques, driven by his body's instincts, temporarily replaced the heart's function. This is insane. How on earth did this kid learn these 2 forbidden techniques with his single Magatama Sharingan?" Shannon, baffled, could only shake his head and offer a treatment plan. Just give this kid a heart, he can still live. Terumi Mei's face paled. Even though she was accustomed to the carnage of Kirigakure, she still felt a tingling sensation on her scalp when Shinin, so calm and so open with his heart, spoke to her. Fighting back her discomfort, she asked, but, given the current conditions, where can we get him a matching heart? Shinin pondered, then stood up and rummaged through the rubble nearby. He tossed the massive stone back and forth like a toy. Soon, he pulled out a monster tangled in black threads. It was the Earth-style masked monster, the Earth Grudge, that Uchiha Chi had slashed into the cliff face and left behind. Shinin crushed the mask with his bare hands and pulled out a heart tangled in black threads. We have one right here. As Uchiha Chi shattered the wind-style mask, Shinin noticed a beating heart beneath it. This meant that the Takenin rebel Kokuzu had a heart in each of his masks, and it could be free and remain alive. Plus, this kid also had those black threads in his body. If I stuffed it in, he shouldn't die, right? So thought Shinin, the barefoot doctor of the ninja world. Despite his vast knowledge, and the fact that the Sky Ninja Village was decades ahead of the ninja world in technology, even capable of producing flying aircraft carriers, he had never encountered such an outrageous situation as Uchiha Chi's. With a desperate attempt at survival, Shinin thrust a heart into Uchiha Chi's chest, then unleashed a palm magic, his hands illuminating with a green glow. He then looked expressionlessly at Terumi Mei. I can save him, but I need your help. Huh? Terumi Mei froze, pointing at herself. Me? What can I do? I don't know any medical ninjutsu. Shinin, a look of boredom on his face, silenced Terumi Mei with a cold gaze, then asked calmly, can you blow on me? Terumi Mei nodded blankly. Can you pinch my nose? Terumi Mei nodded again. Shinin hummed with satisfaction, then asked, can you kiss me? Terumi Mei nodded instinctively, but soon her fair face flushed red, and steam billowed from her head. She clenched her hands incoherently, stammering, what did you say? What kiss? I have no idea what that means. Shinin looked at her expressionlessly. Looks like you understand. Very good then. You've mastered artificial respiration. Lift the boy's chin, pinch his nose, then take a deep breath, kiss him, and blow. 2 rounds, each for 1 to 1.5 seconds. Blow out 1/3 of the air until his chest rises, then stop blowing and release his nose. Raise your head, take a deep breath, and prepare for the next round. Keep a rhythm, about 20 times a minute. Terumi Mei was stunned. What are you talking about? Once isn't enough? 20 kisses a minute. She swallowed her saliva and looked at the profile of Uchiha Chi sleeping on the ground. Her pupils couldn't help but tremble. Her face flushed instantly, like the rosy clouds on the horizon at dawn. Birds flew by, and everything grew. Under the rosy clouds, the chill of early spring seemed less chilly. Shinin tilted his head. Is there a problem? Moreover, this rhythm must be maintained for at least half an hour, and this kid's condition is special, and he may not be cured in an hour. Can you do it? If not, just leave it here and let this kid fend for himself. Terumi Mei shuddered suddenly, biting her lip and raising her hand. I will do it. When she said this, she couldn't help but think of the scene when Uchiha Chi jumped off the cliff holding her. Since he could save her without hesitation, why couldn't she repay this favor? Now, it was her turn to save him. But the villain in Terumi Mei's heart flushed red and steam came out of his head. He couldn't help but count on his fingers. 1 minute is 20 times, half an hour and 30 minutes, that's 600 times. If it's 1 hour, that's 60 minutes, a full 1,200 times. Ugh, I'm going to kiss him 1,200 times and it's not enough. Shinin coughed, a hint of mischief rising quietly in his cold eyes, and then he asked coldly, are you ready? Let's start. As soon as the words fell, his palms, shining with a green light, fell and slapped Uchiha Chi's chest. What? It's starting now. Terumi Mei couldn't help but panic. She quickly lifted the brown tassel beside her earlobe, raised her head anxiously, and took a deep breath. Then, slender white fingers lifted Uchiha Chi's chin. The red sun rose. The rosy light penetrated her red hair and eyes, illuminating her like a seraph carrying the holy light. She kissed Uchiha Chi on the face. Huh? Chapter 54, Dissolving Kiss. 500 million, or 50 million? Uchiha Chi stood there in silence, staring at the two options. Honestly, all the hardships he'd endured were nothing compared to 500 million. With 500 million, he could use it to slap Big Brother in the face, making him regret his actions and fall to his knees to lick his new Berluti shoes. He could drive the same car he'd only admired from afar, freeing himself from the daily grind of the wind and rain. He could even bid 2 million, lavishly purchasing the house from a mean landlord in this era of plummeting housing prices. Then, amidst the landlord's contemptuous gaze, he'd upgrade his status to a state of mind, wondering if this kid was some wealthy man's long-lost son. 500 million. That's 500 million. With 500 million, I'd be the living Dragon King. Yet, Uchiha couldn't help but recall his brief year in the ninja world. He didn't have to worry about tomorrow or food. He could accumulate a 7-figure bank account simply by diligently training within the clan and completing trivial tasks. The clan elders, though ruthless in their words, actually cared for him. Every week, he'd see a basket of rice, flour, vegetables, and eggs outside his door. Such a peaceful year, yet such a year filled him with anxiety and unease. And after leaving the clan elder, Uchiha Setsuna, nearly lost his life saving him, and his fate remains uncertain. His newfound acquaintance, Hidden, would cling to him even though he knew the danger was imminent, and would blindly jump off a cliff out of trust. And there was more. The cutest girl Uchiha had ever seen would actually hold him dead, a look of sorrow on her face. It made his mouth water, and he wanted to transform into a demon and attack her fiercely. But Uchiha knew it was all a lie. The brief peace that had graced the ninja world that year was a lie. The image of the man, who, intent on sacrificing his life for insurance fraud, was a lie in the eyes of others. The true face of the ninja world was filled with blood, tears, hatred, rage, and madness. And he wasn't the heroic hero who saved the world in the storybooks. He wasn't noble or righteous. From the very beginning, he was a greedy, lustful, and vulgar man, a fake. Yet, 500 million, that was the real deal. A loss of 450 million would be more painful to the calculating Uchiha than a knife. So, Uchiha's gaze fixed on the two options before him. He clasped his hands together and chanted Amitabha, thinking, Brother Hidden, I'm completely burned out. What happens next depends entirely on your luck. I'll burn 3 sticks of incense for you in the other world, looking at your figurine. If all else fails, burning some coins is fine. 500 RMB gets you 10,319 yen. If you exchange all that for 1 yen, you'd have a thick stack. That's pure sincerity. After all, as you can see, I only have 5.26 yuan left in my pocket. Burning coins for you and then having to take out online loans is quite a sacrifice. Sorry, buddy, this day's friendship is worth 500 yuan to me. Not a penny more. After reciting this long list like a mantra, Uchiha grinned. He puffed out his chest with confidence, raised his palm, and poked at the option, ready to greet the living Dragon King's bright new tomorrow. However, just as his finger was about to touch the subtitles, a sweet breeze, like a girl's long breath, blew in from the torrential rain. From the cracks in the window. From the endless darkness. After repeated relays, dozens, hundreds, thousands of times, they finally reached the room shrouded in torrential rain. Uchiha's smoldering heart, his empty, chill chest, suddenly felt a surge of warm blood, instantly spreading to every limb. Bang! 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 The world froze, cracks rising. Inches of crimson light filled the background, suddenly shattering the dark clouds of the sunless night. It was the light of dawn. A kiss that could dissolve even Susanoo. 1310, 1311, 1312, in the land of hot water. Atop the cliffs beside the evil god cult's headquarters. Shannon observed the scene before him, perfunctorily mending the wound he'd inflicted on Uchiha's chest, then silently counted in his mind. This was all he could do. Stuff a heart into Uchiha's chest, and all other procedures except artificial respiration will be automatically performed by this kid's forbidden technique, flesh regeneration, and secret technique, earth grudge suturing. Even chest compressions are not needed, which is very convenient. Any medical ninja, seeing such a patient, would want to shout, please give me 3 more baskets, but whether Uchiha can survive is still a question mark for him. Even Tsunade, one of the 3 ninjas, would be confused after seeing such a case. Not to mention him, a barefoot doctor. How is his condition? Is he alive? Maid-Arumi panted, suddenly raised her chin, pulled out a crystal silk thread, and glared at Shannon beside her. Upon hearing the girl's question, Shannon's expression suddenly shifted to one of serious alert. He said solemnly, it's almost there, almost there. I can sense a power awakening within this boy. Terumi Mae gritted her teeth. You said exactly that half an hour ago. Will it work? Give me a definite answer. Shannon glanced at the corpse of Uchiha Chi, figuring it hadn't moved in so long, so he must be dead. Should he take him back for an autopsy? Just as he was wondering if dragging him away directly would be rude, he suddenly sensed a surge of sinister, cold chakra rising from the ground. Shannon's eyes narrowed, and he looked towards the spot where Uchiha Chi's eyes lay on the ground. Then, he said solemnly, this time it's real. Terumi Mae wore a faint smile, a vein throbbing in her forehead. What on earth did this guy take a girl's first kiss for? Okay, this is the last time. If he still doesn't change, I'll melt you and him together. Terumi Mae glared at him coldly, then turned around and expertly lifted Uchiha Chi's chin. Her red lips bit as, unsatisfied, their lips tightly closed. Looking at the young man before her, she thought that if Uchiha Chi didn't wake up, she'd use the boiling release, Miss Jutsu next time. However, before Terumi Mae could finally breathe a sigh of relief, Uchiha Chi, who had been lying dead on the ground for over an hour, suddenly opened his eyes and gasped twice. The harsh breath slapped Terumi Mae's face, leaving her stunned. Her Sharingans lit up instantly, bloodshot streaking through the whites of her eyes. Uchiha Chi watched 500 million fly away before his eyes. The single magatama in his pupils spun violently, threatening to split in two, then in three. But then, the boy and girl's eyes met, and a sudden silence fell. Uchiha Chi blinked. The rage rising in his heart suddenly dissipated as he watched Madarumi kiss him. His pupils dilated, then blurred. And he began to wonder if he was truly dead and in heaven. Meeting the girl's angry and humiliated gaze, he wanted to immediately rush to the online forums to post a boastful post, then urgently asked the netizens, damn, I was forcefully kissed by a super cute girl. Is she responsible for me, or am I responsible for her? Ugh, I want to scratch my head. I'm completely unprepared, I haven't even met her parents. How did it come to this? Madarumi, who had been giving her artificial respiration, suddenly stopped breathing, her face instantly flushed crimson, and steam seemed to be pouring out of her head. The embarrassment and humiliation at this moment were almost overwhelming. Waiting online, urgently, she gave the handsome boy artificial respiration and kissed him over 1,300 times. Would he think she had bad intentions? Madarumi immediately propped herself up and covered her face, then turned her head to look up at the sunrise in the sky, performing a series of smooth moves. Then she pretended that nothing had happened, that she was just admiring the beauty of the dawn, trying to make Uchiha Chi think that everything that had just happened was an illusion. And so, the spring morning breeze, carrying the scent of youth, awakened the morning sun. Uchiha Chi blankly touched the corner of his lips, and couldn't help blushing. His eyes followed the girl's lively figure and looked forward. She stood in the dawn, her ears red, her long brown hair swaying in the wind. Her black hair fluttered, and the light was dazzling. The atmosphere suddenly became subtle. Thank you all for your monthly tickets and rewards, and thank you all for your recommendation votes. Bang bang bang. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55 Shannon Questioning, Sudden Action. At the foot of the cliff, after a brief moment of enchantment, Uchiha Chi immediately gathered his thoughts and glanced around. The three of them were no longer on the cliff where they had fought Kakuzu. That area had been surrounded by members of the evil god cult, dressed in black robes and samurai attire. Dozens of them, their search area expanding. At some point, the team had moved to the other side of the valley, to the other side of the cliff where Kakuzu had used wind-style suppression to cause the collapse. Right under the noses of the evil god cult members, it was clear they were truly skilled and daring. However, at this rate, it was only a matter of time before they were discovered and surrounded. Did you see it? Shannon stood aside, looking down and said lightly, the noise of your battle with Kakuzu was too loud, and it has made the other side alert, including what you have seen now and what you have not seen. On the outside, there are 4 teams constantly expanding the search range with a battle center. The entrance to the cave of the evil god cult headquarters is guarded by 6 fully armed Chunin teams. Inside, it is still unknown how many members there are. Today seems to be a special day for them. Most of the forces have been called back to the headquarters. Shannon paused, then looked back at Uchiha Chi and Terumi Mei, and said lightly, "It's about time to face reality, right? With your strength, it is undoubtedly a fantasy to want to accomplish something like wiping out the evil god cult." Uchiha Chi frowned slightly, and was about to refute. However, Mei Terumi turned around at this moment, her eyes solemn and determined. "I'm going. I have news that I must confirm inside. Besides, it's not without a chance." She pointed to the location of the castle and frowned. "The underground cave is directly below the castle. We don't need to go straight in. We can sneak in by opening a tunnel straight down from the top. The enemy's defenses are concentrated here now. The castle above is not well guarded. This is an opportunity." Shannon shook his head slightly. "First, you don't know the depth of the cave. Second, how can you guarantee that the tunnel you open will reach the cave? Also," Shannon asked calmly, "how can you be sure that this isn't a deliberate trap set by the enemy? Who knows, there might be 100 people inside the castle waiting to trap you. Just buy me a little time," Mei Terumi said resolutely with a determined look. "I'm proficient in ninjutsu of the 3 attributes of water, earth, and fire. I can use the earth escape technique, the fish swimming in the earth, to explore the location and information in the castle. Moreover, the limestone layer that makes up the cave can be easily corroded by my molten escape technique. It'll only take a moment." Mei Terumi cast her gaze towards Uchiha Chi. Shannon might be powerful, but his presence here resembled an old man strolling around with nothing to do, seemingly indifferent to everything. It would still be up to her and another member of the team, Uchiha Chi, to complete their unfinished business. But Mei Terumi hesitated. She looked at Uchiha Chi, fresh from a fierce battle, his head covered in burns, scrapes, and blood, and felt that her request seemed a bit excessive. Shannon scoffed at the perfect moment, saying, "Little girl, have you forgotten, when we first arrived here? You were the one who proposed that seemingly feasible plan, but what happened?" He pointed at Uchiha Chi, who lay on the ground and struggled to get up. "Because of your hesitation, we missed the chance to break into the evil god cult's headquarters. Because of your hesitation, you ran into Kokuzu, the S-rank renegade Takenin. Because of your hesitation, this guy is now lying here half dead. That kid named Hidden who was with you was captured, and the evil god cult's security has increased significantly. Now you want him to die for you. If you had listened to this kid earlier, you would have already stormed the evil god cult's headquarters, wouldn't you?" Shannon didn't finish his words, but the dissuading tone in his words was clear. Shannon, a bystander from the beginning, saw it clearly. In his eyes, the only one in this team who truly wanted to reach the evil god cult's headquarters was Mei Terumi. Uchiha Chi and Hidden, those 2 brats, were just impulsive brats who wanted to be heroes, boasting about their ninja games. It wasn't until Uchiha Chi put his life on the line against Kokuzu and discovered his hidden talent that Shannon began to take even a small interest in this makeshift team. Under Shannon's questioning, Terumi Mei fell silent. She exhaled, clenched her hands, and felt a bit foolish. This was clearly her own business, so why would she instinctively rely on Uchiha Chi? For a moment, no one spoke. The atmosphere was as oppressive as a sow giving birth, everyone's faces solemn, their faces on full alert. Then, Uchiha Chi, who had just struggled to get up from the ground, suddenly spoke up. "No problem, then I'll help you buy some time." Terumi Mei and Shannon looked at him in surprise, their eyes filled with bewilderment. Their gazes shared the same meaning. It was like asking, "Young man, do you have the right to speak here? Don't you see how miserable you are now? Besides, do you still have chakra action? There is no problem with the plan." Kokuzu's appearance is an unexpected emergency. Uchiha Chi opened his Sharingan, scanned the position below, and analyzed aloud, "With the enemy's current defense, it is obviously not feasible to rush in. I think we can give it a try." After that, Uchiha Chi looked at Terumi Mei and asked her, "I will attract the other party's attention, and you go to gather intelligence. Where will we meet up after this? How much time do I need to buy you?" Terumi Mei took a deep breath, her eyes struggled for a moment, and then she said coldly, "You have to go down from here, bypass the outer wall, pass through the battle site just now, take them around the city wall, and then go to the fork in the road in front of the underground cave of the evil god cult headquarters, turn to the inner wall of the castle and climb up. That's the meeting place." Terumi Mei pointed to the terrain below and explained the route to Uchiha Chi in detail, as well as the nodes that needed attention. Then, her expression slightly stiffened, she continued, "It'll take about 5 minutes. Once the investigation is complete, I'll arrive at the fork in the road ahead of time and unleash the mist hidden jutsu to help you escape from your pursuers. If the plan succeeds, we might also find the information I'm looking for, as well as Hidden's location, then rescue him." Shannon, standing by, couldn't help but scoff. "That's a nice statement, but what if something goes wrong?" He paused, then added quietly. "Say, you let this kid draw fire and flee with dozens of people, and after you get what you want, you never come back, without your mist hidden jutsu to help us escape." This kid, before Shannon could finish, Uchiha Chi laughed. "In that case, I'd probably be facing 10 evil god cult teams, 12 search team ninjas, countless wandering samurai, and 18 fully armed shunins wielding the evil god cult's secret techniques. In that situation, I'd probably die." Then, Uchiha Chi turned to Madarumi. "But I believe in you." Chapter 56, The Price of Resurrection, the gradually perverted Shannon. Meeting Uchiha Chi's sincere gaze, Madarumi felt her heart skip a beat. Her face flushed slightly, and without hesitation, she raised her head, gazing intently at Uchiha Chi with her clear, emerald eyes. "I'll definitely come." Uchiha Chi nodded, his gaze fixed as he continued to observe the dozens of enemies on the wall below with his Sharingan, carefully memorizing their positions. Soon, a slight frown settled over him. It wasn't because the enemies' sheer numbers made them formidable. Rather, he suddenly realized that his Sharingan had suddenly become capable of seeing farther and clearer. The rapid rotation of the Magatama enhanced his dynamic vision and the ability to delay frame reading, similar to bullet time. Uchiha Chi's heart sank, a feeling that something was amiss. He immediately wanted to open his control panel to check his current status. However, Shannon, who had been silently observing Uchiha Chi, leaned forward with his arms folded. With a sneer, he asked, "You should have noticed, the heart that beats within your chest, while giving you life, has also become a shackle to you." Uchiha Chi raised his brows, gave him a cold look, and decisively opened his control panel. Employee, Uchiha Chi. Title, Heaven's Strong Man. Talents, Heart of Steel, SSS, Sharingan, Dual Magatama, A, Combat Intuition, Proficient, S+, Special Equipment, Earth Grudge Heart, Earth. Upon equipping, gains the ninjutsu Earth Style, Earth Spear. This ninjutsu negates physical attributes, allowing only heart attribute ninjutsu to be used. Retraining other chakra attributes can increase the heart's attributes. Skills, Uchiha Style, Shuriken Manipulation Technique, Mastery, S, Super Death Battle Barrier, Mastery, S, Fire Style Ninjutsu, Forbidden, Wind Style, Sky Slashing Wave, Forbidden, Water Style, Water Fang Blade, Forbidden, Earth Style, Earth Spear, Beginner, B, Special Skills, Fire Style, Chakra Mode, Forbidden, Forbidden Technique, Flesh Regeneration, Proficient, S, Secret Technique, Earth Spear Suture, Beginner, A, Heart Strength Stacked, Expandable, Insurance Status, Paid. Seeing the situation on the dashboard, Uchiha Chi's frown deepened. Judging from this situation, he was able to survive because Shannon replaced him with Kikuzu's Earth Spear Heart. The side effects were also obvious. Due to the special nature of the Earth Spear secret technique, each heart can only be used for ninjutsu of one attribute. This posed a problem. Now, his ninjutsu reserves were very limited, with only the Earth Spear remaining. He couldn't use Fire Style, Water Style, or Wind Style, including the self-destructive Fire Style Chakra Mode. This reduced him from a turret-based ninja to melee ninja limited to Earth Style, specifically the defensive Earth Spear. However, instead of feeling happy, Uchiha Chi felt even more depressed. He had become stronger and more robust. After all, lost chakra could be regained through practice. However, Earth Style Earth Spear, this technique, in the ninja world, was almost at the top of the list of conventional ninjutsu, an advanced version of Earth Style hardening. This technique allowed the body to repel anything like diamond, boosting defense to the limit while simultaneously increasing the destructive power of physical attacks. Aside from lightning-style ninjutsu with lightning-type transformations, no conventional ninjutsu existed that could break the Earth Spear. In other words, as long as he could withstand the extreme demands of this technique, Uchiha Chi could easily become a master of dense ninjutsu. Thinking of this horrifying scene, Uchiha Chi fell silent, unsure how to respond to Shannon's question. Shackles, what the hell was that? He only knew he was incredibly strong now. Shannon, seeing Chi's utterly depressed expression, raised his eyebrows, and an irrepressible amusement immediately filled his eyes. He chuckled, putting on a cold expression that frightened a child, and said sternly, "Well, do you feel a sense of emptiness? All the ninjutsu you've practiced in the past have now become futile. All your efforts so far have betrayed you. Do you understand what reality means?" Uchiha Chi, he had no idea how to respond to Shunnin's questions. Was he going to say, "Thank you so much for not only helping me clean out the trash, but also for thoughtfully slipping a +20 dragon-slaying sword into my hand"? HMPH, Shinnon sneered, folding his arms. With the expression of a master, he whispered coldly into Uchiha Chi's ear, "Why do you think I saved you? I want you to sink step by step into this world of eternal suffering, recognize the cruelty of this world, and then honestly give up your ridiculous idea." After saying this, Shinnon was silent for a moment. He patted Uchiha Chi's shoulder and sneered, "The ninja world is not so naive as to be ruled by a fool like you. The ninja in the blood mist are not worthy of your trust. Now, go home and feed, little brat." On the cliff, the cold morning breeze brushed past, carrying a few green leaves with it. Uchiha Chi narrowed his eyes slightly, slapping Shinnon's hand off his shoulder. He then looked at him and asked coldly, "Why are you saying this to me?" Shinnon frowned slightly, then said calmly, "Do you even need to ask why? Now that you have nothing, what can you do? Continue to be stubborn, or continue to cling to your meaningless ninja way? Oh, you don't think I'm pitying you, do you?" Shinnon scoffed, then added, "Unfortunately, I don't pity a dead man. When you stole the forbidden technique, flesh regeneration, from me and used it, your fate was sealed. It's called a forbidden technique because it consumes the human body's life force. After using it, you only have 3 to 7 years left to live. I might as well tell you that the only way to avoid the cost of the forbidden technique is to find a consumable that can pay for it." Shinnon sneered, revealing the cruel truth. "And that consumable is the tailed beast." Uchiha Chi frowned at him. He had guessed at the price of his lifespan. The cornerstone of Orochimaru's corpse reincarnation technique comes from the forbidden technique of flesh reincarnation in the hands of this man. Before Orochimaru used corpse reincarnation technique, he used the body of the imperfect test subject, Uchimaru. 3 years later, Uchimaru's body began to reject him. Uchimaru's previous woman's body also began to reject Orochimaru, forcing him to give up her body about 7 years later. Using an unsuitable body will cause wear and tear, and this wear and tear can only be repaired by using flesh reincarnation technique until it fails and collapses. The way to solve this side effect is to either try to seize the power of the tailed beasts like Shinnon did, or to engage in scientific research like Orochimaru, and avoid this cost by constantly changing bodies. Shinnon's eyes narrowed slightly, and he spoke, almost as if to torture him. "Now, have you faced reality, having lost all your power, the one that could have burned you into an idiot? Do you think you can grow into a cage-like power in 3 years, or do you think you can risk the guilt of starting a ninja war to defeat and seize the tailed beasts from the major hidden villages?" Shinnon's question cut to the heart of the conflict, addressing both Uchiha Chi and his former self. But back then, Shinnon had chosen to escape, to forge a new path, researching the incomplete Zero Tails. In the process, he gradually realized the dangers of the Zero Tails dark chakra, and began to travel the ninja world in search of a solution, which ultimately led him to the land of hot water. And now, at that very moment, he longed to know, faced with the same, or even more difficult, situation, what would Uchiha Chi, that arrogant brat, choose? Would he flee like him, or face this despairing reality head-on? Shinnon's smile gradually changed, his expression becoming increasingly cheerful. He pointed to the bottom of the 400-meter-high cliff and whispered in Uchiha Chi's ear, "So, you want to prove it to me? Please collect, recommend, and read. Thank you all for your monthly tickets and rewards, and thank you all for your recommendations." Bang, bang, bang. Chapter 57, Invincible Jump. The Macho Man appears. Watching Shinnon gradually reveal his true identity as the villainous boss, Uchiha Chi's heart sank. As expected of a villainous boss, he was truly vicious. Not only had he saved himself, but he had also thrust a vicious jutsu, Earth Style, Earth Spear, into his arms. He even used such cunning words to explain the side effects and immunity to the forbidden technique, flesh transformation. Now, he was pointing at the cliff and asking him to go down and mow the grass to practice his skills. Didn't he know that the key to Uchiha-style silk manipulation, shuriken jutsu, wasn't the shuriken at the back, but the silk manipulation? Silk manipulation combined with Earth Style, Earth Spear, the two Magatama Sharingan, his upgraded combat intuition, and the secret technique, Earth Wrath, created an infinite thread of ninja tools. Entering a multiplayer battle with all these buffs. Damn, he was being forced to stack steel again. Why was a young and ignorant genin being forced to endure such unbearable pleasure? Uchiha Chi's face darkened. Meanwhile, Madarumi had already gone over her planned route in her mind, ready to go. Seeing Uchiha Chi's expression, she asked in surprise, "What's wrong, see? Do you look like your chakra hasn't recovered yet?" Uchiha Chi shook his head. "No, I'm in fantastic shape." The forbidden technique, flesh transformation, continuously drained his vitality while in effect, increasing his physical activity. By now, his strength had fully recovered. He turned to Madarumi and said, "Begin, you." Madarumi wanted to ask again, but didn't know how to begin. Then, her face straightened and she solemnly reminded him, "Remember, our real goal is to break into the evil god cult's headquarters and recapture Hidden. There's no need to engage them. We just need to attract their attention and create a gap in the city wall, allowing me to sneak in. You, don't force yourself." She recalled several times when Uchiha Chi had acted impulsively and irrationally. While the results were acceptable, they were undoubtedly too dangerous. It was like trying to play with fire. "Don't worry, it's just a matter of attracting attention, isn't it?" Uchiha Chi patted his chest and grinned. "No one knows how to create a conspicuous bag better than me." Wait, the two were stunned by this, and just as they were about to ask if they had misunderstood, Uchiha Chi turned his back, gave a thumbs up, and smiled a dazzling smile. Immediately, he leaped straight off the 400-meter cliff, before the two stunned eyes. Terumi couldn't help but shrink her pupils as she exclaimed, "Idiot, you're jumping the wrong way." On the castle walls, dozens of Ronin in tattered, wide-sleeved samurai uniforms were divided into 4 teams, carrying samurai swords and led by a genin from the U-Ninja squad. Nearby, the other 4 evil god cult teams were expanding their search area, centered on the rubble of the collapsed mountainside. They lacked the extensive scouting techniques of the great ninja village, instead employing a simple method, a leashed dog. Each team was assigned 2 dogs, mostly Akadis, with 2 valuable fierce dogs, Tosa, also known as the Tosa. One of them was held by Hokage, the Chunin squad leader of the evil god cult, who was in charge of this mission. He held a kunai, melted, deformed, and then solidified. It was the team's only discovery beneath the city wall, and it must have belonged to a participant in the fierce pre-dawn battle. Hideki squatted down, held the kunai to Tosa's nose, sniffed it, and stroked its head. Then, in a cold voice, he asked, "Good dog, tell me, where is the owner of this kunai?" A morbid fervor shone in Hideki's eyes. If he could find the intruder, the bishop would even generously reward him with the secret arts of the evil god cult. And the value of a secret art in the ninja world, especially in a small country like this, was something that many ordinary ninjas could never achieve in their lifetimes. Most of those who joined the evil god cult had spent their entire lives in plunder, banditry, horse bandits, and Ronin, pursuing power only to become a Chunin. But as long as we seize this opportunity. The Tosa Inu sniffed the deformed kunai before its nose and twitched its pitch-black snout. Suddenly, its eyes grew fierce, and it shook its head from side to side, straightening its body. The fur on its back stood up, and its throat hummed with a continuous, muffled roar as if a motor had been plugged into it. It looked as if it was facing a formidable enemy. Seeing this, Hideki's right eyelid twitched, and a wave of panic seized him, sensing something was amiss. The dog's behavior indicated it had found its enemy. However, Hideki's eyes fluttered, and he immediately looked around. There was nothing to the left, nothing to the right, and it was unlikely there was anything beneath his feet either. So, Hideki looked up and saw a dark figure in midair, carrying a raging gust of wind as it thundered down from the 400-meter cliff face. A long, crimson streak was trailing through the air. "Everyone, alert!" Hideki's pupils suddenly constricted. He immediately drew the ninja sword from his waist, pointed it toward the sky, and shouted in alarm. "Enemy, in the sky!" A gust of wind ruffled his hair, and Uchiha Chi's eyes snapped open. A pair of crimson sharingans lit up, 2 Megadamas spinning rapidly within their pupils, instantly locking onto the complete positions of the 36 enemies on the wall below. Their stance, their alertness, their chakra levels, their weapons, their potential reactions, all captured within his gaze. In a split second, he had mapped out his battle plan. Terumi's exclamation echoed in his ears from behind, but it didn't matter. Uchiha Chi hadn't fully subscribed to her plan. If he simply contained the enemy, circling them, and following the route Terumime had laid out, even an Genin could accomplish it with enough speed. But that wasn't enough. Uchiha Chi's goal was to storm the evil god cult's headquarters and confront its leader in a life-or-death battle, risking everything. Retrieving his 500 yuan brother, Hidden, was merely a secondary objective. He would fight to the death, using every possible means. That was his true target. And these ragtag bunch of scum before him weren't worth his dodge. Uchiha Chi's lip curled, his gaze locked on the first member of the evil god cult to notice him. Reaching out, he pulled the last kunai from his ninja tool bag and swung it, driving it deep into the city wall. The released kunai pulled the earthwrath silk thread tied to its end, stretching it. Landing close to the edge of the city wall, Uchiha Chi held on to the thread with both hands, his foot breaking the wall to halt the majority of his fall. Then, with a sudden, looping leap, he soared high. Spinning in midair, he delivered a fierce whip kick, striking the evil god cult Chunin in the face as he roared. His ninja sword raised. The taijutsu he borrowed from Kokuzu was truly powerful. With one kick, he sent the man flying, head and body alike, leaving only his ninja sword to fall helplessly in midair. Uchiha Chi casually took the ninja sword, gripping the hilt and swinging it with a dazzling sword flower, then held it before him for a look. He was slightly surprised, then flicked the sword with his fingers. Ding, the penetrating sword sound echoed, and Uchiha Chi's eyes lit up, a smile of gratuitous pleasure on his face. Huh? It's actually a fine sword. Not bad, it belongs to me now. Please collect, recommend, and read on. Thank you all for your monthly tickets and rewards, and thank you all for your recommendations. Bang bang bang. Chapter 58 Battle of the City Wall, Flash Step Warrior. Meidarumi's battle plan sounded complex, requiring a series of turns at 5 locations, and requiring the coordinated efforts of 2 men to reach the rendezvous point. But Uchiha Chi summarized it, concluding it was essentially 2 key points. 1. Draw out as many enemy forces as possible. 2. In 5 minutes, rendezvous at a fork in the road not far from the underground caverns beneath the evil god cult's headquarters. Uchiha Chi's task, then, was simple. Simply set the battlefield on this wall and face all the enemies head-on. Hold on for 5 minutes. The first wave they had to face was the 36 individuals before them. These included 24 Ronin warriors, 10 genin, 2 chunin, and 8 dogs. That wasn't all. The evil god cult's chunin squad guarding the cavern entrance would quickly arrive to reinforce them upon observing the situation. Then, they would face the 3 to 16 elite chunin of the evil god cult arriving one after another. In even more extreme situations, even more enemies could burst forth from the underground caverns. Furthermore, this was a battle where chakra conservation was paramount and bloodshed was a minimum. Uchiha Chi took a deep breath as he surveyed the horde of enemies before him. He then swung his sword, gripping the hilt backwards in a wielding stance of Yunryuken Jutsu. He rested his sword on his arm, leaned forward, and paced his breathing. His crimson eyes held a solemn expression. Honestly, he wasn't skilled in swordsmanship, nor in close combat. Otherwise, Kokuzu wouldn't have seized the opportunity and nearly killed him with a flurry of physical techniques. However, he had already discarded all his shuriken in the previous battle with Kokuzu, and the kunai he had just thrown was the last of his ninja tools. Only 2 detonating tags remained in his tool bag. Now, he had only his sword to rely on. So, trust in the sword. Elsewhere, Hideki, sent flying by Uchiha Chi's kick, slammed against the base of the city wall. He struggled to his feet, supported by his genin. His head was pounding, and his vision was swirling. It took him a while to regain consciousness. Hideki steadied himself against the wall and looked up at the young man before him. He was wearing a hooded black robe that was noticeably too short, his exposed chest covered in bandages. His eyes shone a cold crimson, and he held his ninja sword in reverse, calmly gathering his strength. Seeing the twin Magatama in his eyes, Hideki smiled. I thought he was some powerful character, but it turns out he's just a brat. The young genin who was supporting Hideki couldn't help but twitch his lips slightly when he heard this. He stood aside and pointed at Uchiha Chi's eyes, whispering, Captain, that's the Sharingan. This kid must be from Hell Valley. I know, Hideki sneered. Isn't it just Uchiha? He looked at Uchiha Chi coldly and sneered. See? He's only one person, and we have 36 people here. Masato, what are you afraid of? Have you forgotten the bishop's promise? The opportunity is right in front of us. If we capture this kid before the deacon guarding the cave entrance arrives, then, Hearing this, the young genin couldn't help but hold his breath, and his eyes immediately turned red as he looked at Uchiha Chi. It wasn't like he was looking at a person, but rather at a mountain of gold. Hideki couldn't help but smile when he saw the expressions of his men. However, he did not let his guard down. As a middle-aged wandering ninja and rebel ninja, he might be weak, but to have survived for so long in the chaotic land of hot springs, he must have more brains than Pianzi. Immediately, he ordered his men, gather those Ronin and divide them into 3 groups to lay siege in stages. Then divide them into 2 ninja teams to go behind the city wall to guard the direction of this kid's retreat. Once he approaches, release ninjutsu to block him. Then, I will lead 2 teams to block the front. Attention, the ninja team will only surround and not attack. Let these Ronin fight him to the death, their role is right now. As soon as there is a chance, I will give a hand signal, and the front and rear ninja teams will press forward at the same time to cripple him. It would be best if we can capture him alive. After that, Hideki looked at the young genin coldly and asked, Masato, do you understand? The young genin whipped out a kunai, his eyes sharp, and nodded sharply. He then gestured to the leader of the Ronin samurai group and several squad captains, briefly laying out a battle plan. Hideki immediately assembled a squad, commanding 7 or 8 Ronin samurai to charge at Uchiha Chi's vast force. A Ronin has murdered you, a wandering samurai, believing ninjas are nothing special, wants to chop off your head with a katana slash. Hideki, the Chunin squad leader of the evil god cult, has evil intentions towards you. Uchiha Chi had barely stood still when a large screen of subtitles flashed before his eyes. Immediately afterwards, a group of Ronin charged forward, swords drawn, 2 even wielding chakra-encrusted katanas. This group of Ronin was a mixed bag. Some newly retired bandits had taken up robbery, others samurai who had lost their lords and were now wandering and robbing, employing simple chakra-encrusted weapons. Overall, however, they were not strong. Uchiha Chi's gaze narrowed slightly as he glanced past a group of Ronin, glancing at the evil god cult Chunin, who, having just been sent flying by his kick, had immediately risen to his feet and assembled his men to launch an attack. He was slightly surprised by their speed of reaction. He quickly realized, this was the ninja world, not a game. The enemy was human, too, and wouldn't just stand there and wait for a blow. With this thought in mind, Uchiha Chi didn't flinch. He lunged forward, charging into the vast horde of Ronin. He gripped his sword in reverse and unleashed a horizontal slash of Yunliu Lizhun, unclear slash, at a burly middle-aged Ronin approaching him. As the Ronin instinctively tried to block, he swiftly spun around, slashing another Ronin behind him, who was out of sight. Then he thrust backward, and without even looking, he drew his sword upward, blocking a katana strike. Bang! Sparks flew. A samurai behind him seized the opportunity to block Wuxia's sword and thrust his chakra-infused ninja sword at his back. However, Uchiha Chi leaped back, twisting his ninja sword against a blocking katana and forcing it down. He stepped on his opponent's chest, shoulders, and head, then soared into the air. He delivered a fierce whip kick to the samurai's head, his ninja sword swirling and slashing down, striking another samurai. 2 samurai with simple chakra manipulation fell. Uchiha Chi frowned, feeling that things were going too smoothly. The 2 sides were completely on different levels. In a single encounter, 4 of the 8 Ronin who charged forward fell. Were they just going to let their own men come to him for nothing? Fuck. Come with me. At that moment, a roar rang out. The one-eyed samurai leader, wearing an eye patch and layered green armor, was struck by the brawn before him. He immediately frowned, not caring to cooperate with the utterly ridiculous battle plan the evil god cult leader had ordered. A staggered attack. If this continued, Uchiha Chi would soon annihilate all his men. With a roar, the samurai leader led the charge, charging relentlessly with his vast army. He raised his katana, a violent surge of chakra emanating from it. With a twist of his foot, he instantly cracked the tiles of the city wall. With a speed almost comparable to flashing body technique, he swung his katana, wielding a reversed Cossack stance, aiming for Uchiha Chi. A flash of pure chakra instantly pierced through the blade, slicing diagonally. Uchiha Chi's eyes fixed, instantly recognizing the opponent's moves. They were the same 2 techniques used by Mifune, the leader of the Iron Country, in the original novel, Flash Step, and the sword technique, Sky-Splitting Slash. Hideki, watching from the sidelines, couldn't help but beam with joy. He had the Ronin lined up to die, precisely to force the Iron Kingdom's defected samurai leader, whom he couldn't control, to take action. He'd let him engage this brat while his 4 squads, 12 ninja, seized the opportunity to launch a surprise attack. Once trapped in such a precarious situation, he couldn't imagine how this Uchiha brat could turn the tables. Seeing the opportunity had arrived, Hideki's face darkened, and he waved his hand at his men. Attack, please bookmark, recommend, and read on. Thank you to the Godfathers for your monthly passes, and thank you to the gentlemen for your recommendations. Bang, bang, bang. Chapter 59, explodes suddenly, and the black tiger rips out its heart. Dang, you successfully counterattacked a Ronin, gaining a random skill from the opponent. Basic swordsmanship, beginner, you successfully counterattacked a Ronin, gaining a random skill from the opponent. Delicious vegetable soup and bark recipe, mastered, you successfully counterattacked a samurai, gaining a random skill from the opponent. Swordsmanship, chakra attachment, beginner, you successfully counterattacked a samurai, gaining a random skill from the opponent. Swordsmanship, round slash, beginner, your heart steel level has increased. The Iron Country's defecting samurai, Ohashi Takashi, has a murderous intent on you. A genin of the evil god cult has set his sights on you. A genin of the evil god cult attempts to slit your throat with wind style, wind blade. Subtitles showing 4 Ronin and samurai being chopped down in quick succession, along with a new wave of hate targets, flashed before his eyes, but Uchiha Chi had no intention of reading them. At that moment, a crescent-shaped blade slashed across the city wall, cleaving through the tiles. With a sharp edge that could sever even the wind, it hurtled towards Uchiha Chi. He felt a chill on the back of his neck. Even in this age of ninjas, there were warriors of formidable combat prowess. For example, Mifune, the leader of the Iron Country warriors, even reached the level of Kage through pure swordsmanship. While the warrior before him was far inferior to Mifune, a mere chunin at best, the current crisis clearly went beyond that. His crimson eyes darted back and forth, taking in the scene. Time seemed to stretch infinitely in this moment, and Uchiha Chi could even take in every facial expression frame by frame. Behind the samurai leader followed a dozen or so Ronin, wielding their blades. Unlike the utterly degenerate Ronin commanded by the evil cult's captain, Hideki, this group of more than 10, led by the Iron Country warrior leader, was clearly more organized. From different positions and angles, staggered and forming 2 lines, they simultaneously rolled and slashed at Uchiha Chi's throat, eyes, joints, heart, calves, thighs, and other vital points. The first row of Ronin immediately rolled over after their blow, making way for the second row to launch a second round of powerful slashes. Arms swung in circles, slashing downward, aiming to chomp Uchiha Chi into pieces. But that wasn't the end. Behind them, the 12 ninjas of the evil god cult almost simultaneously began to form hand seals. From their stance, they seemed to have no regard for the lives of their fellow samurai, determined to destroy them and Uchiha Chi together. Witnessing this thrilling scene, Uchiha Chi showed no fear. He stood as still as an old pine tree, not moving a muscle, facing the overwhelming onslaught without a dodge. He slipped his ninja sword into his ninja tool bag, then pulled out his 2 remaining detonating tags, holding one in each hand. Then, like Nibashi performing flame style, Flame Thunder God, he flung his arms wide. Instantly, the sword energy of sword style, Sky Slash, the 17 advancing Ronin, and a barrage of fire style, Fire Bomb, Wind style, Wind Blade, Earth style, Rock Pillar Spear, and Earth style, Rock Cannon, ninjutsu cascaded down like machine gun fire. Uchiha Chi suddenly raised his head, his mouth curling, his eyes ferocious, and shouted, crack, with a snap, the detonating tags in his palms instantly ignited. The dozen or so Ronin who had attacked were stunned. That's a detonating tag, hide. This kid wants to die with us. You make it sound easy, but where the hell can we hide? There are ninjutsu all over the place. Fuck, this kid is crazy. Who uses a detonating tag like that? Just hanging it on your hand to detonate it? Aren't you afraid of blowing yourself up? For a moment, the faces of the Ronin who had rushed over were filled with terror. They didn't know whether to advance or retreat, but stood there, staring at Uchiha Chi's face, as if they had lost their voice. The next moment, the detonating tags burned out, and a barrage of ninjutsu rained down simultaneously. Boom! A brilliant ball of fireworks instantly rose from the spot. The city wall shattered, debris flew everywhere, flames and wind swirled, and curls of white smoke rose. A clang like the impact of metal and stone was hidden in the background. 17 Ronin were engulfed in it, and soon the scene was filled with screams of agony. The samurai leader, standing nearby, immediately used flash step to distance himself, swallowed hard, feeling a dryness at the corners of his mouth. He had never seen such a resolute ninja. He blew himself up without a word, as if someone was chasing him and wanted him dead. Such a spirit would put even the samurai who would commit seppuku at the slightest disagreement to shame. The samurai leader was instantly struck with fear. He suddenly turned and glared coldly at Hideki, the nearby leader of the evil god cult. He was about to angrily scold him for his lack of moral integrity when a surprised voice suddenly rang out from the smoke behind him. "Huh? Your sword seems quite good, isn't it?" The samurai leader was startled and instinctively turned his head to look back. A blue ring shone in the smoke. A ninja sword, gleaming with a dazzling blue light, slashing down 4 Ronin and piercing the smoke. A young man in a tattered black robe rushed out, brandishing a black hand that looked like it was coated in deep ink. He leaped high and delivered a black tiger heart-rending strike, piercing the samurai leader's chest. Then, with a gentle squeeze, a bang. With a swipe of his hand, Uchiha Chi knocked the samurai leader, who had raised his hand, to the ground. Then, under his resentful gaze, he snatched the sheathed katana from his hand and slung it across his waist. This scene caught the evil god cult members off guard. In this desperate situation, surrounded by ninjutsu and swordsmanship, this boy had managed to remain unscathed, even having enough strength to break through the wind and chop down the samurai leader. Facing the astonished gazes of the evil god cult ninjas present, Uchiha Chi said nothing. He simply raised his head and stared intently at the 12 ninjas across from him, more specifically, at the ninja tool bags strapped to their waists. Earth style, earth spear, this technique granted him powerful defensive power, even allowing him to bypass explosive tags at close range. So, from the very beginning, this group of people posed no threat to Uchiha Chi, who is already well versed in ninjutsu. Uchiha Chi leaped down here, intent on fighting to replenish his dwindling ninja tool bag. Whether it was the Uchiha Ryu silk shuriken, his silk thread taijutsu that was distinct from that of ordinary ninjas, or the brand new silk thread swordsmanship he'd conjured up in his mind. They all require tangible ninja tools to support his wild imagination. Glancing at the incoming bands of the evil god cult's elite, Uchiha Chi licked his lips. He placed his hands on the ninja sword and katana, each at his waist, and wrapped a jet-black earth resentment silk thread around the hilt. He swiftly drew it out. Time is short, the mission is critical, let's fight quickly, the blade flashed, whirling in his palm. Holding the ninja sword upright and the katana in reverse, Uchiha Chi leaped high, his eyes opening in midair with a pair of bewitching crimson eyes. Spinning around, he used his powerful momentum to throw the katana he was holding in his backhand. Swish. Please collect, recommend, and read again. Thank you to the Godfathers for the monthly tickets, and thank you to the gentlemen for the recommendation tickets. Bang bang bang. Chapter 60, Sharingan wields Windmill 3's great sword. A long sword pierced the air, ripping through the air. It suddenly lashed out at Hideki, the leader of the evil god cult, who stood at the edge of the city wall, below the cliff. This strike completely caught him off guard. Seeing Uchiha Chi leap up, he'd assumed he was going to demonstrate his dual sword style, closing the distance and leaping into the crowd. This close combat forced the members of the evil god cult to dodge each other, preventing them from deploying ninjutsu. While his swordsmanship and taijutsu skills might not appear high, they were more than adequate against the rebellious and wandering ninja of the land of hot water. But why did he throw his sword? Would that mean he'd lose a weapon for nothing? For a moment, the evil god cult leader pondered, but in a split second, the blade was already approaching. His eyes widened as he watched the cold, sharp blade flash before him. He grabbed Masato, a subordinate who had just run up to him, by the back of his collar and swung it. He then immediately did a strategic backward move, bending his back and thrusting into a split. Puff. Thud. The katana pierced through the cult leader's beloved subordinate like a piece of paper, then, unwaveringly, pierced the cliff face. Captain, me. Masato suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, spraying it into the cult leader's face. His eyes were filled with disbelief, as if he had many more questions to ask. But then, he closed his eyes forever. Cult leader Hideki, his eyes narrowed, watching the blade, barely an inch from his forehead, with a lingering fear. Fortunately, he still had his beloved subordinate to block the blow. The man had also lost a weapon. All he had to do now was order his team to use ninjutsu to cover him. He doubted the enemy's ability, similar to the earth release hardening technique, could hold out much longer in the smoke. But then, boom! Hideki tilted his head and saw a jet black thread on the katana's hilt suddenly straighten. The next moment, a swirling blue blade suddenly illuminated. Like a madly spinning windmill, it suddenly spanned dozens of meters in midair, roaring down like a dump truck uncorking champagne. What is that? What the heck is this? So fast. How could it be so fast? The evil god cult's genin stood stunned, watching as Uchiha Chi, in midair, was suddenly pulled by the taut silk thread. Using the momentum, he instantly adjusted his stance, swung his sword, and transformed into a windmill. Uchiha Chi spun again, closing the gap. But this propulsion clearly wasn't enough to pull off the same spinning blade drop as Captain Mikasa from the Titan. So, he opted to use inertia to throw the sword again. The ninja sword in his hand seemed to him nothing more than a larger kunai. Suddenly, the ninja sword pierced the air, and before the horrified gaze of the evil god cult's captain, Hideki, it pierced his back as he leaned back. Amidst a scream, Uchiha Chi leaped from midair, landing a foot on the opponent's chest. He unsheathed his ninja sword and slung it back to his waist. Without even glancing at the opponent's sullen expression, he kicked him over, flipping him over. With a quick glance back, he snatched the ninja tool bag from his waist. After weighing it briefly, Uchiha Chi's face lit up with a smirk. As expected of a leader, his ninja tool bag contained 17 shurikens, 3 kunai, and about 7 or 8 needle-shaped senbons. Not bad, quite impressive. An Uchiha Chi with ninja tools and without them were two completely different creatures. Next, he would attack in his tentacle form. Uchiha Chi slung the ninja tool bag to his waist, his sharingan raised slightly, quickly locking onto the positions of the ninja present. He drew out 4 shurikens from each hand and swung them forward. Swish! 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 8 shurikens shot out in seemingly chaotic, yet potentially deadly arcs. And this was just the beginning. Uchiha Chi's continuous actions unleashed a swarm of 17 shurikens, 3 kunai, and 7 senbon, 7,000 kimonos, in 3 seconds. Their tails, tethered to the inky black threads of earthly wrath, danced in midair, a sight that numbed the human scalp. This wasn't the end. Uchiha Chi then made use of the available materials. He slapped a cliff face, shattering a rock. The falling debris was quickly hurled out by Uchiha Chi as well. Stones, rocks, the scabbard of the evil god cult leader Hideki, his shoes, the iron plate from his foreguard. He reached back again and snatched the ninja tool bag from the waist of the now deceased evil god cult member, Masato. This one was quite meager, containing only 6 shurikens. Uchiha Chi frowned, not bothering to criticize his poverty. Anyway, he roared. Take my shuriken and throw them all out. With that, before the astonished gazes of the evil god cult ninjas, the young man in the tattered black robe shot the evil god cult ninja Masato to death with a single blow. Less than 5 seconds later, he had struck down their leader with another. Damn, why is a sword supposed to be used to shoot? Without time to ponder the question, 5 seconds later, they looked up in horror to find a dense, overwhelming barrage of bullets rising before them. Shadows leaped, and the sun suddenly dimmed. Damn it! What's wrong with this kid? The evil god cult ninja's breath hitched, their eyes filled with horror. A wave of inexplicable shock washed over them. How could this kid, alone, fire the equivalent of 10 men? The evil god cult ninjas couldn't keep up with Uchiha Chi's speed to begin with, and now, with his opponent having shot down their leader, they were thrown into chaos without a leader. Cover, quickly, take cover, damn, that guy's firepower is too strong. Paulway, quickly hide behind the parapet, it's a blind spot, his shuriken can't reach it. If you really can't get away, get down. Wait, I'm already behind the parapet, but how can this shuriken turn? The scene was in chaos. When the barrage of bullets finally ended, only 6 people were still standing. However, before these 6 could celebrate their survival, Uchiha Chi suddenly revealed a sinister grin. Gripping 3 silk threads, he activated a tactical backward move. 10 fingers pulled, and suddenly, he yanked. Sharingan windmill, 3 great swords, the densely packed throwing props on the field rose simultaneously, a black silk thread illuminating at the end. The silk thread suddenly pulled back, straightening. Snap! 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 The ninja tools rebounded, the thread suddenly unleashing a deadly attack hidden beneath the chaotic chaos, tying all the ninja who had risen to their feet to the parapets. Straighten, Pull tight. Boom. The protruding parapets of the city wall were ripped and shattered by the threads, and huge rocks fell from the walls. Dust erupted, and the tremendous movement drew everyone's attention from the castle. Huh? Uchiha Chi rubbed his aching forehead and let out a deep breath. This kind of movement should be quite attractive. This was his first time wielding so many threads simultaneously. However, the effect seemed quite good. In the original novel, the same technique, used by the young Nihashi in the original story, could only be used to bind a target. But in his hands, it became a powerful killing move. Uchiha Chi glanced back solemnly, looking down at the wall. There, 12 elite members of the evil god cult were rushing towards them at a rapid speed. Then, next, it's the pursuit. There's still one chapter left, and it's 2 hours late. After finishing the outline, I'll urgently fix the problem raised by the previous masters about the heart not being my own. I've read all the comments, and if there are any problematic points, I will modify and add patches as appropriate without affecting the progress of the outline. Thank you for your support. I'm a newbie and really don't have much experience, so please bear with me. Please, give me a follow-up read. Chapter 61 Heart Upgrade, Chase and Block. Dang, you bravely charged the evil god cult's underling, Hokage, gaining a random skill from him, Earth Style, Earth Flowing Slope. Beginner, C. You bravely counterattacked a genin who attempted to harm you, gaining a random skill from him, Earth Style, Rock Stealing Stick. Beginner, C. You bravely counterattacked a group of enemies who attempted to harm you, leaving them unable to refute. The counterattack was powerful, bonusing critical hits, due to the presence of the special equipment, Earth Grudge Heart. Earth, the ninjutsu skills gained are converted to heart upgrade progress. Current progress, Wind, 6%, Fire, 52%, Lightning, 0%, Water, 88%. The swordsmanship gained from the Ronin group is integrated into Basic Ninja Swordsmanship, Proficient, D. Detailed description available. Another wave of subtitles flashed before his eyes. Uchiha Chi swung his ninja sword a few times, noticing that his hand, once only clumsy at swinging a sword, suddenly became much more flexible. The basic ninja swordsmanship forms the foundation of all ninja swordsmanship. It includes basic moves such as Iai, Karatake, straight head-on chop, circular slash, Kasusa slash, right diagonal chop, Nakasusa slash, left diagonal chop, left horizontal slash, right horizontal slash, left upward chop, right upward chop, Niffin, bottom up chop, and the thrust. Practicing these moves will enhance proficiency in future swordsmanship styles like the Cloud Ryu, Konoha Ryu, and Uchiha Ryu. This will prevent situations like the heart explosion attack on Kokuzu, where lacking any swordsmanship skills, the blade struggled, and the initial strike was misdirected. Glancing at the detailed description of Uchiha Chi, he suddenly realized, this is how it works? His powerful flying sword technique could finally be retired. Heart upgrade progress, in simple terms, is a measure of one's chakra cultivation. Fire and water attributes have a higher level of proficiency in them, and since the ninjas of the land of hot water primarily master water-based ninjutsu, their initial progress is higher. Wind-based ninjutsu, perhaps due to the recent release of wind-based ninjutsu, Slashing Sky Wave, has a bit of a boost. So, it seems Uchiha Chi won't have too much trouble regaining his physical attributes. Especially fire-based ninjutsu. Honestly, he missed his fire-based chakra mode terribly. It was a deadly self-destructing weapon. Furthermore, while conscious and in good physical condition, he could fully utilize the forbidden technique, flesh regeneration, to regenerate a new heart. At that point, he could consider replacing his current, ridiculously frail earth-based heart. However, he only has one chance left to use the forbidden technique, flesh regeneration. Uchiha Chi has already decided to save this opportunity for the leader of the evil god cult. The evil god cult's reinforcements are arriving soon. Uchiha Chi briefly glanced at the rising subtitles, then, having a rough idea of what new skills he'd acquired, stopped reading. He immediately gathered the ninja tools from the broken wall and snatched their toolbags from the ninja lying dead or feigning death. However, before he could finish hoeing the earth, a series of dark figures followed. Uchiha Chi raised his diligent back, his eyes narrowed slightly. 12 members of the evil god cult appeared before him, wearing the standard black robes of the evil god cult, with high collars and waists, and leather scripture boxes strapped to their forearms. They stopped on the wall, took a glance at the devastated scene, and then, with a cold look, They stretched out their hands and simultaneously drew the evil god cult's exclusive ninja tools, pointing their jet black spears at Uchiha Chi. The leading member of the evil god cult, like an emotionless robot, indifferently asked, "You did this, Tisk?" Uchiha Chi uttered an annoyed sound as his F-key was interrupted by a cutscene. His face darkened, a deep expression like that of a ninja. "What? You want to kill me? Honestly, you're truly ignorant." Uchiha Chi suddenly opened his eyes. Two cold, dark magma twirled into his crimson pupils. With a cold, arrogant, and disdainful expression, he declared, "I've seen through everything you do." The evil god cult's elite members couldn't help but jump at this display of prudence, far surpassing anything seen in the current ninja world for over a decade. The leading member of the evil god cult waved his hand, pointed at Uchiha Chi, and shouted, "Kill him." His words were filled with murderous intent. 12 members of the evil god cult formed into 3 teams. The first team, consisting of 4, charged forward, wielding jet black spears, slashing at Uchiha Chi. The second team, consisting of 6, stood still, forming hand seals, preparing to unleash their ninjutsu. The third team, consisting of 2, formed the evil god cult's secret incantation of a triangle within a circle, their faces darkening as they waited in apathy. Meanwhile, Uchiha Chi had only managed to pick up half of the 12 ninja toolbags lying on the ground, placing them in 2 ninja toolbags and hanging them at his waist. There were 34 shurikens, 8 crudely crafted kunai, hardly effective for blocking, a ninja sword, a katana, and a sleeve containing 40 senbon. Seeing the 12 elite members of the evil god cult charging forward, Uchiha Chi took a deep breath and, without a second thought, leaped from the wall. He had previously faced off against similarly dressed evil god cult elites in the village. Just 3 of them had nearly killed him there. Logically, he should have fought to the death here. But the situation was completely different now. With a formidable defense of Earth-style's Earth Spear, and his intimate knowledge of the intelligence, unless these men possessed powerful lightning-style ninjutsu or some other secret technique to counter the Earth Spear, they would be powerless to kill him. Continuing to fight them here, when the conflict wasn't acute, would waste too much chakra. Even if he finally met the final boss, he might be judged as slacking off and deliberately seeking death. Therefore, even after completing his goal of collecting ninja tools, he still had to proceed according to his plan. With this thought in mind, Uchiha Chi leaped. His feet landed on the wall, skidding to stop his fall, then he immediately stood upright and ran along the rampart. The sound of wind whistling and several extremely sharp explosions filled his ears. He leaped over, hurling 2 shurikens laced with earth wrath threads, piercing the nearby mountain wall. With a sudden tug on the silk thread, he dodged 4 incoming jet black spears with a precarious maneuver. He then flipped mid-air, gliding to the ground and continuing his run. This ability to adapt to the terrain was the reason Uchiha Chi dared to risk his life on the city wall. How could running be faster than flying? He grinned, almost reaching the agreed rendezvous point with Madarumi. However, as he rounded the corner of the mountain wall, Uchiha Chi's smile froze. He slammed on the brakes, stopping dead in his tracks. His sharingan was filled with astonishment. The 12 elite members of the evil god cult, who had stood on the city wall moments earlier, suddenly appeared before him. And there were even more of them. 16 of them lined up in a row, hurling 16 pitch black spears at him. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62, Momentary Slash, Karst River Rock. 16 black spears suddenly shot towards him. Uchiha Chi's pupils suddenly constricted, and he simply closed his eyes, intuitively predicting the pitch black spear's impact. The next moment, he immediately used Earth-style, Earth Spear, focusing Earth attribute chakra on the area of his body about to be struck, hardening it locally. Clang. 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 16 powerful, heavy black spears struck Uchiha Chi with a resounding sound like metal clashing. Though they caused no damage, they plowed his feet into the ground, leaving 2 furrows over a meter long. Uchiha Chi opened his eyes, his brow furrowed slightly. Tisk, the momentum's been blocked. And, Earth-style, Earth Spear, a B-rank ninjutsu that pushed defense to the extreme, also had its drawbacks. If he hardened his body, it would inevitably become rigid. Before he could think, The 16 elite members of the evil god cult drew their black spears again, preparing for a second round of attacks. Almost simultaneously, footsteps could be heard from behind. The 12 elite members of the evil god cult on the city wall had already reached him, trapping him on the short, flat stretch between the underground cave entrance and the outer city wall. Without the advantage of this terrain, he couldn't use the silk thread to pull himself forward or burst into speed, so he could only charge forward. But why were the 12 people on the city wall now before him? A shadow clone, or a transformation jutsu? Uchiha Chi frowned slightly, then fixed his gaze on the 16 before him. His Tumagatama Sharingan, already possessing the power of observation, revealed a clue. The 12 people, in his field of vision, had normal chakra flow and nothing unusual about them. However, 12 of the 16 before him wore a camouflage, a veiled layer of chakra, likely a sign of a transformation jutsu. To confirm the accuracy of his intelligence, he used his consciousness to open the subtitles and took a quick glance. As expected, the subtitles on Heartsteel's broadcast indicated that 28 members of the evil god cult had expressed hostility towards him. In other words, a total of 28 members of the evil god cult, all real men. Add to that a vast crowd on the city walls. Uchiha Chi took a deep breath, a wave of shock surging in his heart. This was clearly abnormal. How could a small evil god cult grow so large and powerful in such a short period of time? Besides the 5 great nations, the only other ninja that Uchiha Chi could think of that could gather so many ninjas in the land of hot springs in such a short period of time was the village known as the Village That Forgot War, Uchiha Village. Had the evil god cult dug up all the secrets of Uchiha Village? But Uchiha Chi clearly remembered that in the original novel, only Hidden, a member of the evil god cult, appeared. Uchiha Chi narrowed his eyes and exhaled deeply. He had no time to delve into these deeper secrets and immediately began to think of a countermeasure. Now, surrounded from both sides, if he simply defended, he would only waste time here, ultimately failing to even touch the boss, let alone seek death. To break through, he had no choice but to charge forward, and the earth spear, which would cause his body to stiffen, was definitely out of the question. So, he had no choice but to take a gamble. With a determined look in his eyes, Uchiha Chi decisively drew the katana hanging from his left waist. Running and slashing. Even capable of shooting down projectiles, a move Uchiha Chi had seen before. That was Yasuo's swiftness. It was the same blade that great elder Uchiha Setsuna had wielded the night they journeyed to the land of hot water. That arc of light, like a moon. Uchiha Chi quickly formulated a battle strategy in his mind. It was simple, no frills. He'd immediately enter the gamble. A bet on whether he could, within a short time, deliver a striking blow that wouldn't be recorded by the Sharingan. Win, break through the enemy lines and advance to the boss room for a truly heroic 1v1 battle. Lose, and he'd have to live in tears. He twisted his footsteps slightly, closed his eyes, and gripped the katana's hilt with both hands, scraping the tip of the blade against the ground as he slowly swung it forward. A hazy feeling washed over him, as if he were back to that night when the 3-man team sat silently around the campfire. This time, he stood in Uchiha Setsuna's place. He watched the two brats argument indifferently, then, at the climax of the conflict, he slowly grasped the sword behind him. He drew his sword, stepped forward, and swung. Crackling. Uchiha Chi leaned forward, sword in hand, charging. Swish. 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 16 pitch-black spears ripped through the air, leaping 50 meters across, charging fiercely towards him. He opened his eyes, and the twin Magatama in his eyelids spun rapidly. Uchiha Chi leaped high, instinctively unleashing a powerful, devastating blow from above. The blade slashed downward, twisting the incoming pitch-black spear for leverage, and he flipped again. Bang! Sparks flew everywhere. Uchiha Chi's hand, gripping the hilt, felt a slight numbness. He felt a faint sensation, but it wasn't enough. The condensed arc of light dissipated as soon as it appeared. Perhaps it was due to the uneven distribution of chakra on the blade. Landing again, he instinctively rolled over, dodging 7 or 8 pitch-black spears. The spear stuck in the ground, and Uchiha Chi, grasping the edgeless handle, launched himself up and rushed forward again. By then, the 12 elite members of the evil god cult had already taken up their positions behind him. Uchiha Chi suddenly felt a tingling sensation at the back of his head, and he ducked his head. A wind blade blasted past, followed by a barrage of ninjutsu and pitch-black spears. Uchiha Chi gritted his teeth and unleashed 4 shurikens. The shurikens pulled a thread of resentment, entwining a pitch-black spear, creating an opening for him to roll and dodge. Seeing this, the leading evil god cult elite narrowed his eyes and immediately shouted, "Fire in a rush!" 2 consecutive rounds. He then personally drew a jet-black spear, squinted at Uchiha Chi, and imbued the black spear with lightning-release chakra, preparing to deliver a fatal blow. As soon as he finished speaking, a rain of spears rained down on Uchiha Chi, 2 consecutive rounds. Uchiha Chi narrowed his eyes slightly, leaning forward to meet the rain of black spears. He gripped the hilt tightly with both hands. Chakra, through the sword technique of chakra attachment, flowed through the blade, illuminating a blue arc like moonlight. Draw the sword, step forward, swing. One more time. A subtitle suddenly appeared before his eyes. You have mastered Uchiha style, instantaneous slash, beginner, B. At that moment, behind the evil god cult elite, a girl with long, auburn hair emerged from the city wall. Leaped down, and formed silken hand seals in midair. Suhai Yin Jo Zu. Melting style, dissolving monsters. Then, she followed up with a final seal, slamming the ground fiercely. A childish voice, as clear as a silver bell, shook the surroundings, earth style, splitting earth. The next moment, from the point where her palm had begun to the ground beneath the evil god cult members, the ground shattered into pieces, the rock and soil lifted by the raging current below. A vast, corrosive river of melting style erupted, emitting white smoke. Chapter 63, Diving into the Mist, 10,000 snakes catching birds. The earth shook. Vast fissures and molten lava instantly engulfed nearly half of the evil god cult's elite soldiers. Without even a scream, they melted away. Those who dodged in time were horrified, instantly using the body flickering technique to escape the range of the combined ninjutsu and regroup to the side. Uchiha Chi seized this opportunity and swung his sword suddenly. Uchiha style, instant sky slash. A crescent-shaped arc shone. In an instant, the long sword severed the 6 spears in front of him, 3 fire style, fire bullets, and 1 wind style, wind blade. As he struck the 7th spear, the blade snapped with a crack. However, achieving this was enough. Uchiha Chi tilted his head slightly, brushing his face to avoid the final black spear. Then, he took off, no longer needing to consider how to cut through the 16 evil god cult's elite soldiers. Seeing him approach, Terumi Mei immediately formed a seal with her hands, Josei. Water style, mist hidden jutsu. She opened her cherry lips and exhaled, and a pitch-black fog instantly rose. Meidarumi's mist hidden jutsu surpassed even the future demon Zabuza, capable of even buying her teammates a moment in the face of Madara's Rinnegan. The thick fog spread, instantly obscuring the vision of all the evil god cult's elite troops. What is this? It's so thick, I can't see. It's the mist hidden jutsu. How did they find us? Have we been exposed? Seeing this, the leader of the evil god cult frowned, lowering his lightning spear. Immediately, he shouted to calm his troops, hold still. Wind-style ninjas immediately perform ninjutsu to disperse the fog. Everyone, move to the cave entrance and defend it. Don't give them a chance. The fog rose, gradually spreading, engulfing half the castle. Sunlight scattered through the fog, casting a dreamlike image on the entire castle, its blurred outlines tinged with gold. Even with Uchiha Chi's Sharingan illuminated, his vision was limited. Then, a hand grasped his wrist, pulling him back, shifting positions, away from their original location. Let's go. Let's head inside the castle. I found where they're holding hidden. Meidarumi recounted her findings as she ran. Besides, this place is more dangerous than we thought. Members of the evil god cult are gathering outside, and there are 3 smaller teams hanging behind them. They're led by one of the few Junin from the Yujin village, and that guy isn't wearing a renegade for a protector. How strange. The core members of this organization all come from the same ninja village. Are they the evil god cult, or the Yujin village? Uchiha Chi pondered for a moment, unable to figure out what went wrong, and could only shake his head. Let's proceed according to plan. With that, the 2 of them scaled the castle's inner wall through the thick fog. At this point, they had finally escaped the pursuers of the evil god cult and achieved their planned goal. However, an unexpected figure had been waiting for a long time on the inner wall of the city. This figure wore a unique combat uniform, with a purple sutra tied at the waist. He had long black hair, golden pupils, purple eyeshadow extending to the wings of his nose, pale skin, and adorned with blue magatama earrings. Seeing the two people climbing the wall, he laughed hoarsely. Hey, this is really strange. A Kurigakure ninja actually came here with an Uchiha? Uchiha seeing Terumime's pupils shrank simultaneously. This figure was none other than Orochimaru, one of the legendary three ninjas, renowned in the ninja world. Orochimaru was smiling, but his gaze was cold and chilling, as if he were trapped in an icy prison. He slowly crawled over the two people, as if being watched by a venomous snake waiting to bite. Quietly, an invisible murderous aura spread. Under this murderous aura, Uchiha merely frowned, but quickly regained his composure. Calculating the timeline, after the Second Shinobi World War, Orochimaru witnessed the deaths of Tsunade's younger brothers, Naoki and Kato Dan, as well as his parents, and felt the fragility of life. He harbored an urgent desire for immortality. During this period, he had already infiltrated Konoha's forbidden technique base and read a large number of forbidden techniques. At the same time, he had found his own path. Reincarnation is a key step, and this requires Shennin's forbidden technique, flesh transformation, a super speed regeneration technique, to complete. Furthermore, the hatred subtitles were not refreshing in front of him at this moment, indicating that Orochimaru didn't care much for him. Therefore, the other party's current target was not them, but Shennin. Orochimaru glanced at the two men coldly, unconcerned about why an Uchiha was here. It was no secret that the Uchiha clan took on missions outside the village, nurtured family ninja, and secured a long-term mission of guarding the Hell Valley in the land of hot springs. However, the fact that this Uchiha brat was flirting with a member of a prominent Kurigakure clan was even more intriguing to him. However, he was more concerned with something else. Without further ado, he turned to Uchiha and asked coldly, I've received intelligence that a doctor has been following you, hooded, gray hair, yellow coat, tell me, where's he now? Hearing this, Uchiha thought to himself, as expected. However, Shennin had saved his life, so he naturally wouldn't betray him. He simply exchanged a cold look with Orochimaru, scoffed, and said, I don't know. As the second in command of the route, Orochimaru was naturally opposed to the Uchiha clan. Furthermore, if Orochimaru attacked him at this moment, it would likely be dismissed as a sudden incident. After all, this man was volatile, murderous, and devoted to scientific research. If he suddenly decided to use an Uchiha as a guinea pig someday, it would be understandable. So at this moment, Uchiha wasn't afraid of him killing him. We have health insurance, so we can speak with confidence. Hearing this, Orochimaru narrowed his eyes, a dangerous glint gradually growing in his golden pupils. Orochimaru thinks you're courting death, is that so? He sneered, licking the corner of his lips with his long tongue, his gaze towards Uchiha becoming increasingly intriguing. I hope you can still be so tough later. Uchiha shook his head, smiled faintly, and opened his crimson Sharingan, looking at him calmly. I've always preferred the hard side. What, Orochimaru? You want to attack me? As Uchiha finished his words, the atmosphere in the room suddenly grew tense, and a scent of gunpowder gradually rose in the air, as if it would explode at any moment. Hearing Uchiha address him by name, not even bothering to add the honorific Sama, sir, Orochimaru's smile grew even colder and more intriguing. His golden pupils, now devoid of any other expression, were now icy cold. He stared at Uchiha as if examining a corpse. Orochimaru wants to dissect your brain and study it. This chapter has been revised. The evil god cult plot dragged on a bit, and the details on killing monsters and perfecting skill mechanics were a bit watered down. I need to speed up the process. Gentlemen, please feel free to share any feedback in the group. I'll definitely change whatever I can. I haven't received any feedback all day, and my hands are shaking from typing. Sad, I'm just begging for a follow-up. Chapter 64, Skylark War Snake, Zero-Tail Scroll. A thick fog, a swirling fog, a pitch-black fog. Atop the foggy city walls, a tense standoff erupted between the two sides. Terumime turned in surprise, her eyes widening slightly. The opponent was Orochimaru, one of the three great ninjas. Even she felt a slight tremble at the slight hint of murderous intent he radiated. And yet, Uchiha showed no fear at all, even daring to retort with a cold, stern tone. Did this young man truly not know what fear was? Uchiha looked at Orochimaru coldly, his left hand already pressed against his ninja tool bag, the fingertips of his right gradually turning black. During this period of Orochimaru's life, his system still immature, he largely followed the ninjutsu teaching methods of his teacher, Sarutobi Hirozen. This was quite different from the later Orochimaru, the invincible Orochimaru. Whether he could win or not, he definitely couldn't. But if you ask Uchiha if he could fight, he definitely could. Haha, interesting, Orochimaru said, sullenly looking down at Uchiha. He raised his hand slightly, about to unleash his hidden snake hand. But at that moment, Orochimaru suddenly whipped his head around, looking toward the cliffs outside the castle. A massive rock suddenly tore through the white mist and crashed down towards Orochimaru's head. Orochimaru's pupils shrank, and he immediately raised his hand and swung out his hidden snake hand. 8 giant snakes wrapped around the rock, blocking its impact. The next moment, another huge rock came crashing down. The rock collided with the rock, pushing forward again, crushing Orochimaru's hidden snake hand with a bang. Undeterred, it slammed into Orochimaru, crushing his face, distorting his limbs, and crushing him to death on the ground. Orochimaru, one of the 3 ninjas, just died like that. Madarumi stared in shock, stunned as she watched Orochimaru, crushed into a meaty mess by the rock. With injuries like that, how could he survive? This guy won't die so easily. Uchiha frowned slightly, immediately pulling Madarumi back 2 steps. Sure enough, the next moment, a pair of hands suddenly stretched out from the mouth of Orochimaru, who had been crushed to death on the ground. Pulling open his mouth, a brand new Orochimaru, covered in saliva, crawled out of the dead body. Tisk, pecking at the edge of the net, but refusing to enter, Orochimaru narrowed his eyes, looking at the large hole in the mist created by the boulder. What a wary lark! At the end of the hole, Genin, draped in a yellow robe, stood indifferently on the cliff edge, staring at Orochimaru. He waved his hand and tore the clothes open, revealing a pair of massive, powerful pectoral muscles that seemed to dance. Then, he hooked his index finger at Orochimaru, as if in a challenge. The hole was quickly filled and closed by the surging mist. Those rude losers, Orochimaru licked his lips, his eyes grim as he muttered to himself, looks like I'll have to catch them myself. Then, Orochimaru turned to look at Uchiha, smiled coldly, and said nothing. It was as if everything was already unspoken. The next moment, he leaped directly from the city wall, biting his finger in midair. He then formed a seal with his hands and slapped the air. A surge of white mist rose. A massive purple snake, its neck as big as a house, stretched out its head, towering far above the city wall. A colossal shadow descended, instantly obscuring the sun. Under this massive creature, Uchiha and Madarumi swallowed hard. Watching it, C suddenly remembered a saying, bigger is beautiful, more is better. For the first time, he felt the truth of it. Soon, the myriad snakes, carrying Orochimaru, slithered along, disappearing into the mist in an instant, a scene that reminded Uchiha of a scene from the movie The Mist. A terrifying, hideous figure loomed in the mist, radiating an indescribable terror. Soon, a mighty roar erupted from the distance. Accompanied by the painful hisses of snakes, fire and wind soared into the air. A raging wind blew in the distance, and the evil god cult members below didn't need to disperse the white fog. The aftermath of the battle swept past, instantly clearing the fog shrouding the castle. Finally, all Uchiha could see was a massive crimson spell rising. A dense, countless swarm of great pythons soared into the air, clenching and biting at a figure radiating a Saiyan-like aura. Secret technique, 10,000 snakes formation. This was a true battle between cage-level powerhouses. For some reason, Uchiha felt his blood boiling, his body involuntarily inviting him to fight. He longed to find an opponent for a few punches. Madarumi stood nearby, her brows furrowed, her fists clenched. Such a battle, such might, an unrivaled figure on the battlefield. It all held a powerful allure for her. Sooner or later, she too would become a formidable figure, standing on the stage of the ninja world, sweeping through the long, dark night of Kirigakure, and ushering the water mist into greatness. However, at this moment, snap! A crashing sound echoed. A burly figure suddenly leaped from the fortress atop the city wall. The 2 men, alert, turned their heads. When they saw the newcomer, they were stunned. For it was the very person currently engaged in a fierce battle with Orochimaru not far away. Genin. Are you surprised? Genin said calmly, gazing at Uchiha's astonishment. This is a shadow clone, of course, it's also a form of insurance. Uchiha's sensitive thoughts were instantly triggered when he heard the word insurance. He thought, you old man, you're also into insurance? He couldn't help but frown slightly, looking up at Genin, asking in surprise, what insurance? What are you talking about? Shannon stared at Uchiha Chi with a cold expression and sneered. The act of stealing and robbing other secret techniques in the ninja world will cause hatred and fierce revenge comparable to the destruction of a family and a village. Every technique is an extremely precious treasure, even a C-level ninjutsu, but you actually dared to steal my S-level forbidden technique in front of me. Should I say, you really have the brains of an idiot. Then, he snorted coldly and continued calmly, if you hadn't jumped down to fight, I would have killed you on the cliff. If you died under this wall, I would have retrieved your body and taken it back for dissection. If you revealed my information to Orochimaru here, I would have killed you here too. What? Uchiha Chi couldn't help but glare. I actually missed so many precious opportunities to be killed. Shannon shook his head, looking at Uchiha Chi's expression, speechless. But, you little brat, you're truly a hot-blooded idiot with no brains. With that, he sighed, pulled a yellow scroll from the inner pocket of his yellow robe, and tossed it toward Uchiha Chi. Here. If you can't stay in the Uchiha, you can come find me at the old side of the Soren Ninja Village. Only you can. Uchiha Chi took the scroll and looked up. The cover was inscribed with cryptic spells he couldn't decipher. Combined with Shannon's bewildered expression, he looked at Shannon in bewilderment and asked, wait, what is this? And what the hell are you talking about? Shannon's face suddenly darkened. He took a deep breath and said, this is the most extreme power in the ninja world, the link between all hatred and resentment, a terrifying thing that devours the heart and reveals the deepest darkness. Dark Chakra, Zero Tail. Chapter 64 has been revised and will be available after refreshing your bookshelf. Chapter 65, Waksuji Luo, fiercely draws his gun. Tick, tick, tick. An elite member of the evil god cult hurried into the underground square. He immediately half-knelt on the ground and spoke urgently to a ninja as if reporting to his superior. Squad leader, His Excellency the Bishop, that brat who could fight Kakuzu has gone somewhere. He may have broken into our headquarters. He's accompanied by a female ninja from the Mist-Hidden Caverns. She's capable of performing Mist-Hidden Caverns techniques and Bloodline secret techniques. She's very powerful, and I'm afraid she'll be difficult to deal with. The evil god cult bishop shook his head and raised his gaze to the top of the cave above his head. With the defenses we've deployed at the gate, unless an enemy of the Sanin's caliber attacks, there won't be much of a problem, but, the cult's elite soldier hesitated for a moment, then gritted his teeth and reported, Orochimaru, one of the Sanin, suddenly appeared outside just now. The giant snake he summoned landed and crushed quite a few of our members. The cult's leader, taking 2 deep breaths, his expression darkened. He asked in a cold voice, how many died? The cult's elite soldier licked his dry lips and said gravely, over 20 elite soldiers, almost half our strength. Upon hearing this news, the leader closed his eyes, his breathing becoming increasingly rapid. He muttered softly, again, this sudden disaster, this powerless shame. He suddenly opened his bloodshot lavender eyes, a look filled with deep hatred. His back teeth creaked, and beneath his black robe, he gripped a pitch-black spear, the tip piercing the center of his palm. Drops of blood continuously fell to the ground. Yet, beneath the pain, his face regained its impassive expression as he calmly instructed, go tell your superiors to continue guarding there. There's no need to worry here, everything will be over soon. The evil god cult's elite couldn't help but hurriedly exclaim, wait, your excellency, there's a good chance those 2 imps will slip into the castle above. What if they use earth escape techniques from above to sneak into the cave? It doesn't matter. The bishop shook his head and said calmly. The imp from Mist Hidden is probably connected to the Mist Hidden powerful warrior who was recuperating in the castle earlier. She'll leave once she finds what she wants. If she goes any deeper, someone will take care of her. He raised his head slightly, gazing upward at the cave, a sinister grin spreading across his face. After all, we're just a few bugs living in this cave. The true master of this territory won't allow his secrets to be pried into. As for the other imp, the bishop turned his head slightly, squinting at the cross in the center of the blood pool not far away. He looked at Hidden, his hands nailed to the cross, hanging on it. Hidden, is this your new friend? No problem. Let him come along and witness the birth of the evil god together, since you've already sacrificed your family, colleagues, and elders in exchange for favor, for attention, for pain. Perhaps having another friend would be more fun. The elite member of the evil god cult was silent for a moment, then lowered his head and said, in that case, I'll take my leave. Wait, at this moment, the bishop suddenly turned around, narrowed his eyes, and stared coldly at this member. I believe your name is Fangzisuke? You are the only one of this group who hasn't completed the initiation ceremony, right? Yes, sir. Fangzisuke lowered his head even deeper. Then do it. The bishop smiled kindly, like a gentle adult, and took out a test tube and handed it to him. Cut your finger and drop a drop of blood into this bottle, and you're done. It's not hard at all. Come on. The evil god cult's elite member swallowed, his gaze gradually turning fearful. He leaped back, stood up, and drew a dagger from his back. Then, gritting his teeth, his eyes glaring, he roared, and stabbed the evil god cult leader in the chest. You evil demon! You've gone mad. You want to use the lives of all those who follow you to create a monster. Die! With a swoosh, the knife pierced his chest, piercing his heart, and blood gushed out. The leader sighed, as if nothing had happened. He lowered his head slightly, and whispered calmly into Fangzisuke's ear, Fangzisuke, have you had enough fun? Meanwhile, on the castle's inner wall. Wait, why are you giving me this? Uchiha Chi looked up in surprise, staring at Shinin. Upon hearing that the scroll he held contained the incomplete zero-tail chakra researched by Shinin, Uchiha Chi felt it was burning hot and nearly threw it away. He looked at Shinin, his gaze gradually changing, almost wanting to grab Shinin's neck and shake him, demanding, I'm already so strong, why are you still giving me cheats? Why? Shinin scoffed. Then, his eyes widened and he shouted, you're such an idiot, you don't understand how far you are from a true master. Your ninjutsu foundation, taijutsu, kinjutsu, ninjutsu, and chakra levels, none of them even reach the standard of a true genin. You're just using your imagination, combining your limited abilities to create something unique. After completely disparaging Uchiha Chi, Shinin said in a deep voice, but if someone sees through your abilities, obtains intelligence, and deploys a countermeasure, you'll die. Shinin was right. Uchiha Chi's innate abilities were simply an integration of existing ninja abilities, but as long as they were ninja abilities, there were ways to counter them. After all, ninja combat is a battle of intelligence. Just like Kakuzu, after seeing through Uchiha Chi's abilities, he didn't even engage him, but simply used a circumvention strategy, leading to his natural defeat. Still, Uchiha Chi frowned fiercely, cold sweat breaking out on his back, and he looked at Shinin with increasing horror. Shinin's current appearance reminded him of that old man who made his scalp tingle, Uchiha Setsuna. What's wrong with these guys? Their main body is still fighting Orochimaru, and they're rushed over to deliver him a scroll on a train at night? Uchiha Chi sighed and had no choice but to ask, Brother Shinin, what does it have to do with you whether I live or die? Shinin's eyes flickered, and he suddenly smiled self-deprecatingly. Then he said lightly, because I probably also want to see this world full of despair being trampled under someone's feet and wailing. Don't you think this is interesting? He raised his eyebrows slightly, took a deep breath, then slapped Uchiha Chi on the forehead. Kid, since you want to be a hero, do it without hesitation. The jokes of childhood will turn into regrets as you grow older. The shining dreams will fade because of the ruthless blows of reality. Since there's a flame in your heart, you should burn, roar, and fight. Don't leave yourself with regrets, even if you die. At this moment, the expression on Shinin's face was heavy, which he himself could not perceive. He looked at the horizon, as if he saw a hometown that he could never return to, and sighed with regret, because this guilt will be like a thorn in your tarsal bone, tormenting you for the rest of your life. He shook his head. He took 2 steps and, with one hand, lifted up the massive tower beside him. Boom! As easily as lifting a javelin, he then leaped off into the distance, leaping an unknown distance, shaking the ground in the distance. A sinister grin spread across Shinin's face. Orochimaru, you destroyed my hometown, and you still want my jutsu, huh? Then, let's begin round 2. Chapter 66, Cutting Off the Ties. Rain in the city. On the broken wall, the 2 men watched Shinin leap away, their eyes dazed. Uchiha Chi took a deep breath, glanced at the scroll containing the Zero Tails Dark Chakra, and tucked it into his leggings. The Zero Tails, known as the Concentrated Dark Chakra, is a naturally occurring power in the ninja world, one that transcends the 9-tailed beasts. The darker the heart of the one who wields it, the greater the power it unleashes. Upon receiving the scroll, Uchiha Chi felt a sinking feeling in his heart. Honestly, he couldn't understand how he, who had been courting death under the guise of righteousness, could receive such a precious gift. This also served as a reminder. While his current actions were somewhat deviant in their motivations, they were essentially like those of the protagonists in some hot-blooded manga. Courting death made it easier, But then came the side effects of being the protagonist of a hot-blooded manga, always getting help from an inexplicable old man at the critical moment. This was too wrong. Obviously, his truest thought was not to implicate anyone, not to change any major plot direction, but to be alone in the huge ninja world war, to find a suitable opportunity, a suitable strong enemy, and then be beaten to death. What went wrong? Uchiha Chi frowned, feeling that things were not simple. Let's go. What are you still standing there for? On the side, Madarumi saw that he looked pensive, and could not help but waved her hand in front of him and urged softly. Uchiha Chi frowned, and his suspicious eyes fell on the girl who spoke. He suddenly realized, the key to the problem lies in this girl who looks cute but is actually as hateful as a devil. She was the one who insisted on following, and then brought Fiden and Shenin with her, and finally formed such an absurd team. Sure enough, women only influence him to commit suicide. There's no rush to leave. Uchiha Chi's face darkened, and he waved away Darumi Mei's hand. A complex flicker of light flashed in his eyes, and he looked at her coldly. I remember you said you wanted to find someone who is crucial to you in your village? Is that correct? Darumi Mei was stunned. That's right, she cared the greater good of Kirigakure and had to find the ruler everyone in Kirigakure hoped for. This was the fundamental reason for her presence in the land of hot water. Uchiha Chi stared at her coldly, his eyes questioning. I remember you said on the cliff that if I could give you a break, you'd find the information you wanted, and also find Hiden's location. Well, did you find it? Darumi Mei met Uchiha Chi's increasingly cold gaze, feeling increasingly uncomfortable. Frowning, she explained, I've already found Hiden's location. We're heading there now, don't worry, that's not what I'm asking. Before she could finish, Uchiha Chi interrupted her coldly, saying, I'm asking, have you found the information you want? Darumi Mei's heart sank, her mind churning. Uchiha Chi's words abruptly brought her back to reality, from the ninja adventure game that looked towards an uncertain future where justice would ultimately triumph over evil. She was silent for a moment, and finally bit her lip and nodded, saying silently, I found it. Uchiha Chi nodded, and then asked, in that case, then you have no reason to keep going, right? He stared at the girl in front of him with his eyes. And the indifference and questioning in his words were as if he tied her to a chair and tortured her. You have already got what you wanted, so in exchange, I just need you to use the dissolution escape to help me open a hole in this place so that I can dive in. Then, don't get in the way and get away from me. Do you understand? Madarumi couldn't help but look up. Her eyes were astonished, and her clear green eyes widened slightly. Wait, see, didn't we agree to save Fiden? He is also one of us. Uchiha Chi interrupted her directly with a cold voice. Stop making so much noise. He looked at the girl in front of him, sneered, and asked with surprise and disdain, this team is already strange enough, and now it's even stranger. As a ninja from the hidden mist village, as one who wreaks havoc on this land, you actually pity a brat from the land of hot water? Who are you pitying? After all, what can you do when you're just frozen in fear against Kakuzu? If you'd made a more decisive decision back then, we wouldn't have run into Kakuzu. If you'd taken your men and escaped immediately afterwards, Hiden wouldn't have been captured by Kakuzu. You've taken every wrong step precisely. How can I trust you with such foolishness? Each word tore away a layer of Madarumi's illusions, causing her face to darken. She looked up, her gaze growing colder. Uchiha Chi, what on earth do you take everything we've been through so far for? Hearing this, Madarumi clenched her fists and glared at Uchiha Chi coldly. As a Kirigakure ninja, one raised on the motto ninjas are tools, this long yet brief day was a completely new experience for Darumi Mei. This feeling of genuine exchange, of complete trust, this fleeting, beautiful fantasy was shattered by Uchiha Chi. His face was impassive, and he raised an eyebrow. Perhaps, this is just a consensual transaction. He looked at Darumi Mei coldly and said, let's end it here. If you continue to follow me, you'll only hinder my actions. Choose, fulfill this deal and get out, or turn around and leave right now. After all, you've got what you wanted, haven't you? Or, after hearing such harsh words, you, a big-breasted, brainless woman, can't accept it and want to kill me here. At this, Uchiha Chi couldn't help but chuckle. Haha, I wouldn't be surprised if a ninja in the blood mist made this choice. The next moment, he opened his Sharingan, staring intently at Darumi Mei with a pair of cold, crimson eyes, waiting for her to make a choice. Darumi Mei took a few deep, rasping breaths, then raised her cold, emerald eyes, a hint of anger rising in them. She clenched her hands in silence for a moment, then finally let out a long breath, gritted her teeth and said, "If you insist on calling everything that happened here a deal, then so be it. I'll open the passage, and then you'll jump down to your death. I'll leave you alone." Hearing this response, Uchiha Chi couldn't help but laugh. That's perfect. Coming to this world, Uchiha Chi had been a lonely, doomed game. He only needed to keep running. That was enough. These meaningless bonds could be severed. These forced expectations could be let down. It didn't matter. It didn't matter at all. The contact between hearts only dulled his sense of smell and slowed his movements. At that moment, Uchiha Chi saw his true heart and his path clearly. At some point, thick clouds covered the sky above the castle, and a gentle rain began to fall. With this realization in mind, he and Madarumi walked silently toward the center of the castle. They spoke no words along the way, until they finally stood before the castle gates. Chapter 67, Madara's Gaze, Hazuki Mainjutsu. Deeper in the underground caverns of the evil god cult, the sound of slow footsteps and the tapping of a cane echoed through the darkness. Torches hung on the wall lit, illuminating the figure's face. He had long gray hair and an aged complexion. He wore a dark blue robe and leaned on a wooden staff. He looked frail, but when he slightly opened his eyes, a pair of three Magatama Sharingan eyes, radiating an extremely sinister and cold presence, shone within his eye sockets. This figure was none other than the once renowned Shura of the ninja world, Uchiha Madara. The name alone spoke of unparalleled power. Uchiha Madara found a square rock and slowly sat down. Soon, the sound of stiff, heavy footsteps echoed again through the darkness. A handsome old man with long gray hair, a blue beaded headband, and his eyes habitually closed, slowly approached. He wore a blue bamboo hat emblazoned with the word water, a symbol of his status. The most mysterious Kage in the mist, the third Mizukage, who had accompanied the first Mizukage at the first 5-Kage tournament and was his successor, was dragging a bandaged, sealed mummy before Uchiha Madara. After a moment's silence, he spoke calmly, "Madara, the Three-Tails Jinchuriki is here." Madara didn't reply, simply extending his hand and pressing it against the sealed Three-Tails Jinchuriki's abdomen. A vast amount of chakra was effortlessly drawn out by Madara, flowing into his body, then down through the earth's veins, and finally, rapidly flowing to the outer path demon statue in the frost country beyond. Finally, it transformed into a stream of pure life force, feeding back into Uchiha Madara's body, bringing him back to his senses. After a moment, Uchiha Madara slowly raised his head, looked at the third Mizukage, and said coldly, "You're a little early this time, Katachi Yagura. I found out that I've been taking the Three-Tails Jinchuriki away from the village on a regular basis." The third Mizukage shook his head and stated his purpose directly, "Madara, I need you to help me control Yagura. Because of the trouble caused by Hazuki Jinjutsu, Iwagakure will soon declare war on Kurigakure. We can't let Yagura's organization run wild at this time. They might do something very dangerous." HMPH, Uchiha Madara sneered. "Are you scared now? But all this is your own fault. A talentless, mediocre person who insists on taking this position is only likely to suffer backlash." The third Mizukage didn't reply, but simply stared coldly at Uchiha Madara. "So, Madara, what's your answer?" He knew he didn't have the talent. At the first 5-Kage conference, the guards who accompanied the first Kage of each village became second Kage. He alone was suppressed by Hazuki Jinjutsu, and only after his death did he become the third Mizukage. Lacking talent, he could only rely on the power of the man before him to enforce a policy of coercion in the Hidden Mist village, silencing any opposition. It was all a cold exchange of interests. However, Uchiha Madara merely raised his head slightly, opened his crimson Sharingan, and glanced indifferently. "Are you threatening me?" Alarm bells rang in the third Mizukage's heart, and his already closed eyes tightened even tighter. A giant blue hand suddenly appeared, grasping him, and with a fierce squeeze, he was forced to open his eyes a fraction. Then, a pair of cold, sinister crimson eyes appeared. Jinjutsu, Sharingan. The third Mizukage's pupils constricted, turning crimson. 3 Magatama twirled within them, then gradually vanished. Then, like a puppet, he knelt before Uchiha Madara, subject to his will. "A mere grain of sand, not even half as good as me." Uchiha Madara, controlling Susanoo with his massive hand, casually swung him into the wall, scoffing. Just then, a pale figure, shrouded in pitcher plants, crawled out from the cave wall and excitedly declared, "Madara-sama, something interesting seems to be happening up there. Among them, there's an interesting little Uchiha. Would you like to go and see?" Uchiha Madara raised an eyebrow, leaning on his cane to stand up from the rock. "Oh, then let's go and see." On the ground, the castle gate stood wide open, as if welcoming a visitor. Uchiha Chi stood before the gate, frowning slightly, feeling the hairs on his neck stir. Something was off. "Don't worry, I've checked it out, and there's no chakra reaction inside," Madarumi said coolly. She then pointed to the circular rush-covered area in the center of the castle hall and said, "If we use lava release here and corrode a breach, we'll find a vast underground cavern beneath." "Hidden is there?" Uchiha Chi nodded without further comment, following Madarumi forward. This type of castle hall, built for a lord, was typically used for formal audiences. The striking feature was a stone vault supported by 8 pillars. Brightly colored glass windows filtered through, illuminating the hall. The stone carvings, red carpet, and murals all appeared magnificent, a stark contrast to the refugee shacks outside the castle, which barely offered shelter from the wind and rain. However, just as the two stepped onto the red carpet, 2 large doors creaked shut. 6 figures leaped from the dome. 6 men, all dressed in the uniforms of the Kurigakure ninja squad, wore compassionate masks adorned with 4 water patterns. 6 cold gazes pierced through the mask's holes, casting a cold, indifferent gaze. 5 of them formed hand seals. A thick, dark rain cloud suddenly appeared above the dome. Then, fine, drizzling rain slowly fell. The leader of the 6-man team, a white-haired, masked, purple-eyed ninja, slowly drew a long sword from his waist and said indifferently, "Madarumi, you're not from Kirasame. There's no need to risk your life for something like this. Tell the truth, Yagura Karadachi, where's he now?" Hearing this voice and seeing this figure, Madarumi's pupils suddenly shrank. She looked nervous and grim. "This is difficult. Why is this guy here?" She immediately tilted her head slightly and whispered to Uchiha Chi, "Let's go. You can't be a match for this guy." Uchiha Chi looked at the 6 people opposite him, his eyes narrowed, especially at the figure in the lead. White hair, purple eyes. This hair color and features were quite rare in the ninja world, and immediately reminded him of Azuki Sujetsu, a future member of the Hawk team. And the other party was a ninja from Kurigakure. His identity was as obvious as Kakashi Hatake wearing the mask of Konoha Anbu. It was none other than the so-called prodigy of the Hidden Mist Village, a genius who could perfectly wield the 7 ninja swords and possessed the secret scroll of the 7 ninja swords summoning. Mainjutsu. Chapter 68. I am standing at a critical juncture in history. Seeing the person standing opposite him was none other than Mainjutsu Hazuki. Uchiha Chi's eyes narrowed instantly. It wasn't because of the other party's immeasurable combat prowess. The mere fact that he was Mainjutsu Hazuki's older brother revealed that he knew every jutsu Mainjutsu knew, and even those that Mainjutsu couldn't. He knew the water transformation jutsu, the great water arm jutsu, the water cannon jutsu, the Tateboshi jutsu, and even the second Mizukage's oil transformation, the steamed blast jutsu, the mirage, the summoning beast giant clam, and the magical steam tower. Furthermore, unlike the 4th Shinobi World War, this period was completely different. The 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist were fully assembled. This meant that this guy even had 7 ninja swords capable of summoning spirits, boasting nearly full offensive, defensive, and endurance capabilities, including illusion techniques. He could even drive a Gundam, a true hexagonal warrior. Although he looked only a few years older than C, his tactical system was already well formed, and on paper, his prowess possessed the power of a cage. He fully lived up to his reputation as a prodigy, but is this the key to Uchiha Chi's fear? Obviously not. He dared to take action even when Kikuzu appeared in front of him. Now he is just an enhanced version of Mizutsuki, and he is not afraid of him at all. What made C realize that something was wrong was the other party's current identity. Why is Mainjutsu Hazuki a ninja? Mizuki is a village with an extremely strict government. Every position has strict responsibilities and hierarchy. For example, the ninja are responsible for completing the tasks of the Mizukage and hunting down the defecting ninjas who appeared under the high-pressure policy of Mizuki. They are directly under the Mizukage and the purpose is to leave no one alive, not to accept prisoners from the enemy village, and to carry out the order of absolute annihilation. The information that Mainjutsu Hazuki is a ninja contradicts Uchiha Chi's previous speculation. Based on Madara's plan in the original work, Obito's future liquidation and control of Kurigakure, as well as Zabuza's will and the evaluation of Zabuza by the Kurigakure, it is speculated that major events have occurred in Kurigakure. It's a long story, but a brief summary reveals 3 key points. 1. The high-ranking members of the Mizuki during this period were likely involved with the elderly Uchiha Madara, or were directly controlled by him. This allowed Madara to easily manipulate the Kurigakure members to implant the 3 tails into Nahara-rin in the future too. Kurachi Yagura's achievement as one of the only 4 perfect Jinchuriki in the ninja world demonstrates his pure heart, and his ascension to the 4th Mizukage was widely expected. 3. After Yagura was manipulated by Ibiro, he reinstated the blood mist policy. Mamachi Zabuza, the demon man who followed Yagura in overthrowing the old system, noticed something was amiss and led his former companions in a brazen coup against their lord. Furthermore, in the original novel, Hazuki didn't wear a traitor for a protector and had no ninja village affiliation, suggesting he had been preemptively expelled from the village. When Hazuki drew his beheading sword, he expressed respect for Zabuza and mentioned that his brother died while pursuing his dream. It's almost certain that Zabuza Mamachi, the demon of Kurigakure, assassinated the 4th Mizukage, who had revived the blood mist policy, for the greater good. His backer was none other than Maingetsu Azuki, the Kurigakure prodigy and heir to the twin swords, Hiramejo, who similarly sacrificed himself for the greater good. Like Zabuza, he was once Kurachi Yagura's most loyal subordinate and partner. Yet, this man now appeared, a ninja, pressing Madarumi for Yagura's whereabouts. This proved that he wasn't actually Kurachi Yagura's ally at this point. Cautious as Uchiha was, he instantly realized he might be standing at a crucial juncture that would determine the future direction of a major world power. Maingetsu Hazuki's affiliation, whether he sided with the 3rd Mizukage or with Kurachi Yagura, could very well be the key to either of Kurigakure's coups. This realization weighed heavily on Uchiha, who was always reluctant to alter the course of a major plot. Saving Uchiha Setsuna, Uchiha Ichiro, and these minor characters, honestly, saving them, had a limited impact on the original storyline. Uchiha didn't feel overly burdened. But now, things had changed. The larger storyline of Kurigakure involved the plans of the elderly Uchiha Madara, the future of Mizuki, the possibility of a bloody coup, and the impending 3rd Shinobi World War. What would the Kurigakure, now possessing immense war potential, ultimately decide? The key to all this was Madarumi accompanying him here. She could have left immediately after receiving the intelligence. But now, in order to open a path to rescue Hiden, she encountered Maingetsu Azuki, a member of the 3rd Mizukage's faction, who was not on the same side. The 3rd Mizukage's intentions were clear when he sent the Pursuit Ninja to search for Yagura. The Pursuit Ninja's purpose was pure killing. Ruthless, cold-blooded, and emotionless tools were their defining characteristic. The conflict between the 2 factions was already boiling over, waiting for the spark that would ignite the coup. This dark and chaotic era, buried in history, beneath the surface of Kurigakure's calm, is now surging with undercurrents. The curtain has already been raised. Standing in the center of the auditorium, on a blood-red carpet, on this brand-new road stretching toward an unpredictable future, it feels as if 2 paths diverge beneath his feet. One leads to the final throne, a place where rivers of blood flow and corpses strewn across the ground. The other leads to the nearly perfect ending in the original novel. Uchiha trembled slightly. He couldn't explain the feeling, a mixture of excitement and fear. His heart pounded, and waves of blood rushed from his toes to his crown. His body instinctively prepared him for battle. The fingertips of his right hand quietly turned pitch black, and his left hand reached for the ninja tool bag at his waist. With a flick of his fingertips, 4 shurikens were already clamped between his fingers. He slowly raised his head and looked at the 6 people across from him, his eyes narrowed, his expression gradually becoming solemn. At that moment, above, beneath the dome, thick black clouds swirled. Icy raindrops fell, faster and faster. A rainstorm descended upon the castle's main hall. Uchiha frowned, raised his hand, and gazed at the fingertips of his right hand. Is this water style, cutting rain? The raindrops falling on the hardened earth style, earth spear skin, subtly weakened its incredibly strong defenses by more than a layer. To recreate the earth spear's original power would require at least 3 times its original chakra consumption. Moreover, even if it were recreated, it would continue to be weakened by the rain. Water style, cutting rain, unique to Kurigakure, is a secret technique capable of weakening all ninjutsu and chakra except for water style. Even Naruto's balls would be defeated by it. This is a difficult situation. It seems they've observed my battle on the city wall and gathered intelligence, But at least we can't let Madarumi die here. Uchiha Chi took a deep breath, gave up on using his earth-style, earth spear, and drew his ninja sword with his right hand. A pair of crimson sharingans suddenly lit up in his eyes. Two megadamas whirled around his dark pupils as he quietly observed the situation. Meanwhile, Hazuki Maingetsu also noticed Uchiha Chi's battle stance and glanced coldly at him. A numb, indifferent murderous intent shone in his purple pupils. Oh? Another Uchiha? He turned to look at Madarumi, who clenched her fingers nervously, and asked coldly, Madarumi, have you fallen so low as to need to contact ninja from other villages to support your rebellion? This marked the beginning of the war storyline, and the evil god cult plot was about to conclude. The Jigakurani storyline would soon be interwoven with the Kurigakure backstory, ultimately ushering in the Third Shinobi World War. Monday, begging for a follow-up read. Whether or not this will make it to Sanjiang this week depends on today. Otherwise, it'll be another week late, waiting for next week's round of recommendations. Currently at 2,700 follow-up reads, with a few hundred more to go. Please, I really don't want to keep it during this critical period. Those of you who can PY to friends, please help me get 1 or 2 more follow-up reads to share with friends, today only. Please. This chapter is posted today, and there will be another chapter later, calculated based on the latest chapter's 24-hour follow-up reads. Bang, bang, bang. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69: The Assassin Desiring Answers. On the field, as Maingetsu Hazuki's words fell, Madarumi's heart tightened. She glanced at Uchiha Chi, bit her lip, and immediately shouted, he has nothing to do with this. Whether he has anything to do with it or not, does it even matter? Maingetsu Hazuki shook her head, her eyes, numb from so many killings, glaring coldly at her. You should know what the duties of the chasing ninja are. Madarumi took a deep breath, frowned, and looked at Maingetsu Hazuki. The chasing ninja are the most brutal unit in Kurigakure that hunts down rebel ninjas, and are currently the most formidable faction in the land of hot springs. Maingetsu Hazuki looked at the two calmly and said, I don't know why the Sandame killed Yagura, the leader of the Jounin squad, but that's how Kurigakure ninjas are. We are merely tools and pawns of those above us, simply following orders. That's the meaning of our existence. Hearing this, Madarumi clenched her fists, shook her head, and her gaze grew cold. No, that's just the Sandame's cover-up to confuse right and wrong, the bloody elimination system of the ninja school, the terrifying politics where saying one wrong thing can lead to death, the tool-based approach that allows people to abandon their teammates in pursuit of mission efficiency, and the ruthless and cold-blooded rebel nin hunting team. All of this is unreasonable. The Kurigakure ninjas should have a better way out. Maingetsu raised an eyebrow, stared at Madarumi, frowned and asked, then, where's the way out? You who are holding on to this so-called righteousness, how good have you done? Maingetsu sneered disdainfully and said coldly, all the unfair systems you experience now were established under the instructions of the Sandame Mizukage. That's right, he is the sinner who pushed Kurigakure to the edge of the cliff with his own hands. Maingetsu narrowed his purple eyes and asked, but what will you do, in this village where people are fighting for a mission bounty, where there is a shortage of missions and funds? What will you do now that you have power? Under Hazuki Maingetsu's questioning, Madarumi fell silent. She couldn't offer an answer. Ever since the second Mizukage, who had risked the nation's fate in a ninja war against Iwagakure during the previous Ninja World War, ended in a mutually devastating defeat, the decline of Kurigakure had already begun to show. The daimyo of the Land of Water simply distrusted the third Mizukage. Since Hazuki Jinjetsu's death, he had become suspicious and indecisive. Fearing a rebellion against Kurigakure, he steadily reduced funding and secretly cultivated his own power within the village. Kirasame, led by Yagura, and most of the bloodline families within the Kurigakure elders were able to thrive in this difficult situation thanks to the daimyo's support. While the third Mizukage's actions, while excessive, had forcibly united the village, it could even be argued that he had done a remarkably good job given the resources available. What a shame, any drastic action will cause this rotten village to crumble. All you can do, ultimately, is perpetuate this system, so everyone's mouth shut, play dumb, and let it rot. Terumi May clenched her fists, her trembling palms betraying her inner turmoil. Hazuki Maingetsu glanced at her coldly, then slowly drew the ninja sword from his waist. It seems you don't have the answer either, you're also a tool. A means for the elders to communicate with Yagura. Tools never need their own ideas. As tools for both of us, you won't tell me Yagura's whereabouts, and I won't let go of hunting him down and chopping off his head. Hazuki Maingetsu's numb pupils grew even colder. He always asked this question before killing his target. But unfortunately, no one could give him an answer. In return, another ninja from the village would be killed by his men. After all, this was a village beyond saving. Why was he asking such a foolish question? Madarumi watched Maingetsu Hazuki slowly draw his sword. Her pupils couldn't help but shrink, and her whole body couldn't help but tremble. As a person from the same village, she had witnessed Maingetsu Hazuki's strength. This was definitely not an opponent she could fight against now. Compared to her, the other party was a true genius, a real child prodigy. However, she still felt a little unwilling to have her will denied like this. She clenched her fists, her eyes struggling, and argued, there must be a way to get better in the mist. Madarumi couldn't help but think of what Uchiha Chi had said under the moon, and gritted her teeth and said, if you don't do it, there will be no future. The elders have placed their hopes on Yagura. There must be a reason for that. Maingetsu Hazuki shook his head. Such words obviously could not shake his will. Unfortunately, this kind of useless comfort isn't what I need right now. With those words, Maingetsu Hazuki transformed into a puddle and sank into the puddle. The next moment, he mysteriously appeared behind Madarumi, leaping from the puddle and slashing at the girl's neck. Terumi's eyes widened as the blade approached, completely unresponsive. How could it be so fast? She hadn't seen Maingetsu Hazuki make any moves to perform a body flickering technique. At that moment, a bang. Sparks flew, and a pair of crimson sharingans lit up. Uchiha Chi, who had been observing silently from the side, immediately drew his sword to meet the blow. You stupid bitch, the one standing before you was a water clone the whole time. He had been lurking at your feet, lurking in the rain. Uchiha Chi cursed and kicked Terumi Mei's perky butt, sending her flying. Then, he twisted the blade and locked eyes with the masked Maingetsu, a sinister grin on his face. I've seen every move you make under these eyes. What child prodigy? He's nothing but a despicable villain. Maingetsu remained silent. This tactic was indeed effective. First, he used words to break through his opponent's defenses, then launched a sudden attack. As a ninja, he was just that kind of assassin. Maingetsu held the blade with one hand while the other expanded like a balloon, instantly becoming muscular, expanding to 7 or 8 sizes, covered in veins. He suddenly unleashed his water-style, great water arm technique. He launched a flying punch, colliding with Uchiha Chi's smiling face. Bang! Uchiha Chi was launched outward. But Maingetsu frowned, feeling the boy's face was as hard as a diamond. Uchiha Chi, you? Terumi Mei felt a sharp blow to her hips, staggering and nearly falling flat on her face. She couldn't help but glare back. Before she could blush, she saw a dark figure sent flying towards her. Fortunately, Uchiha Chi, a skilled gymnast, quickly spun in midair and landed safely. However, the blow from the Hyoshu wrist left a large swelling on his face. He too. Uchiha Chi spitted out a mouthful of blood foam, raised his chin, looked at Maingetsu Hazuki across from him, and sneered, don't you want an answer? Then let me tell you, how to save Shui Wooly. Maingetsu Hazuki only thought that the other party's brain was damaged by his punch, and the brain matter had been shaken into tofu pudding. He sneered immediately, what a joke, I need an Uchiha to teach me how to do it. He took a step forward, the soles of his feet splashed water, and another punch came fiercely. However, this punch stopped in front of him after Uchiha Chi said the next word. The wind from the punch was even strong enough to lift the roots of his hair. Uchiha Chi sneered at Maingetsu Hazuki who was so close to him, and slowly said with a smile, you said so much, isn't it just to lure her to tell you an answer that suits your heart, and to wait for someone to tell you, you can start now? Then, he looked directly at Maingetsu Hazuki with a pair of scarlet eyes, and the pitch-black Magadama turned. These captivating and strange eyes reflected the eyes under Maingetsu Hazuki's mask, as if they had penetrated Maingetsu's disguise hidden under the tearful mask, and peeped into his heart, trying to dig out his hidden crazy ideas. Maingetsu Hazuki, Uchiha Chi said, his lips curled up like a demon, tempting him. Aren't you the one who wants the king's life the most, serving the tyrant as a tool? Then why don't you follow your deepest desire? Take the first step, launch a coup and assassinate the Sandai Mizukage. To reach the future you desire, that ruined land of mist that exists only in your imagination. The next moment, a subtitle appeared before Uchiha Chi. Maingetsu Hazuki is deeply shocked and feels like a dog has chewed your brain. In the shadows of the hall, an old man and a pale creature, with the expression of an old man on the subway checking his phone, stared at the battle. They fell silent. After hearing Uchiha Chi loudly plotting to assassinate the Mizukage in front of a ninja loyal to the Sandai Mizukage, Uchiha Madara's cane almost tilted, and he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows slightly. He was silent for a moment, and glanced sideways at the third Mizukage standing behind him like a puppet. Well, this is quite interesting. I'm weakly asking for a follow-up reading. Chapter 70, Brutal remarks attack the heart, and the murderous intention is reversed. The words landed with a resounding force. Hazuki Maingetsu's purple eyes widened slightly beneath his mask. Are you kidding me? The next moment, his expression hardened, a gleam of anger rising in his eyes as he punched Uchiha Chi in the face. Boom. Uchiha Chi, not only unfazed, but actually laughed. This meant he'd found a flaw. This was the same rhetoric that the old man, Uchiha Setsuna, had used on him before using his forbidden technique to self-destruct. Seeing through his desire for death, he confidently extrapolated the logic of Uchiha Chi's actions, forcing a bunch of seemingly logical justifications into his arguments. While these arguments were completely illogical, they still left Uchiha Chi speechless. It was a completely outrageous theory based on the available intelligence. And since Uchiha Chi had already been confirmed in the original story, Hazuki Maingetsu would ultimately choose to follow Yagura to establish a new Kurigakure, and once Yagura was manipulated, he would brazenly follow Zabuza in his assassination attempt and stage a coup. Then, using this conclusion, they could infer a rhetoric designed to attack Maingetsu's mind. Shock his heart, refute his will. The outcome might not be realistic, but as long as they hide a sore spot, it would very likely create a perfect opportunity for Uchiha Chi to turn the tables. Now, the opportunity had arrived. In the gap before the blow, Uchiha Chi had already prepared himself. His face ferociously met the punch, unflinching and unevading, taking it head-on with his face. His right hand swiftly pulled a bag of finely chopped needles from the sleeve on his left wrist. With a flick of his hand, 16 finely chopped needles shot out from blind spots, aiming at Maingetsu's heart, eyes, and throat. Uchiha Chi knew that Maingetsu, with his ability to transform into water, was virtually immune to physical damage. But that presumably required him to react quickly. Now, as the distance closed, Hazuki Maingetsu was enraged by his words. Furthermore, Uchiha Chi employed such a sinister shooting technique, firing a senbon through a blind spot that would be completely invisible to the unwary. This move was a sure kill. Hesitation would lead to defeat. Show me the true assassination techniques of the Ashina style. Dang, you bravely charged Hazuki Maingetsu, who despised your intelligence. Heart upgrade progress increased. Currently, water, 96%. The subtitles appeared, but Uchiha Chi didn't bother to read them, his eyes fixed on Hazuki Maingetsu with a blazing intensity. Overcoming the strong with the weak might sound unrealistic, but in the ninja world, anything is possible if you risk your life. Earth style, earth spear, weakened by the rain cutting technique, versus the water style, water transformation technique, attack by surprise. Both are the ninja world's foremost defensive techniques. So, let's see which is more insidious. Swish. 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 The senbon pierced the air, darting towards the vitals. Just as Hazuki Maingetsu's fist impacted Uchiha Chi's face, he immediately sensed something was amiss. A tiny, shimmering white light suddenly flashed in the corner of his eye, and he instantly realized he'd been ambushed by the same Uchiha who'd called him a despicable villain. When Hazuki Maingetsu realized the same technique he'd used on Madarumi was being used against him, he couldn't help but feel a surge of suffocation, a wave of curses surging within him. Damn! Who's the despicable villain? Are all Uchiha characters this good at cosplay these days? Without further ado, he immediately activated his water style, water transformation technique, partially transforming the area about to be struck by the senbon blast into water. Puff, puff, puff. The senbon pierced through the hydrated body, undiminished, soaring towards the dome, piercing the glass ceiling. Despite Maingetsu's quick evasion, 4 senbon blasts still pierced his mask through the eye holes, 2 piercing it fiercely. Blood gushed out. Maingetsu's left eye was blasted, and the intense pain forced him to throw off his mask, clutching his eyes and screaming in pain. His other eye instantly erupted with a terrifying murderous intent. Uchiha Chi's eyes jumped, thinking, oh no. This kid's really caught on. He immediately swung a shuriken with his backhand, wrapping it around the pillars embedded in the hall. He lifted Maeda-Rumi's slender waist and slid away, pulling the thread along, creating distance. After landing again, he frowned. In the hall, the water created by the water style, Kari rain had already spread to his ankles. In this enclosed environment, all jutsu except for water-based jutsu were weakened. None of his shuriken, earth-based jutsu, thread slicing, or swordsmanship could inflict any substantial damage against the alert Hazuki main jutsu, possessing the water transformation jutsu. However, main jutsu was able to utilize the water on the ground to rapidly move, using his grand water arm jutsu to pierce his defenses. With both sides weakening, not even Uchiha Chi himself could survive, let alone save Terumi Mei. If the future fifth Mizukage, Terumi Mei, dies here, it's foreseeable that the fourth Mizukage's blood mist policy will likely persist. Kirigakure might still fall under the control of the Sharingan. At the 5-cage tournament on the eve of the Fourth Shinobi World War, Kirigakure might be deployed as an undercover agent. Saving the world is already difficult enough for our Prince Naruto, but if a traitor backstabs him, who knows how much the future plot and ending will be affected? If that were the case, his death here might truly have been in vain. Uchiha Chi's face darkened at this thought, and he glared at Terumi Mei, whose defenses were still crumbling beside him, and began to curse, damn it. Terumi Mei, you're such a loser, what did you say? You idiot. Terumi Mei snapped back to her senses and glared at him in disapproval. But seeing Uchiha Chi's face swollen like a pig's head, she felt a little amused. Huh? You dare glare at me? Uchiha Chi raised his ninja sword and pointed it at Meijetsu Kazuki across from her. When you're awake, get back to fighting. This guy's been irritated by my words. Don't you understand what that means? Terumi Mei's eyes widened at the words. What had she heard? Uchiha Chi, this clueless young man, actually wanted to fight alongside her? Before this guy hadn't cared less about the enemy. With a clap of his hands, he raised a barrier to encircle the enemy, separating his teammates and embarking on a self-destructive one-vote-one battle of true men. HMPH, a hint of amusement crossed Terumi Mei's face, as if she had thought of something amusing. She quickly tugged on Uchiha Chi's pants and stood up, looking out at the battlefield. Rekindling her fighting spirit, she began to consider the situation. Uchiha Chi's words had clearly hit a nerve. Otherwise Hazuki Mainjutsu wouldn't have reacted so strongly. This also meant that deep down, he might truly harbor the same terrifying desire, one that he had endured for years, to destroy everything and reduce the mist to ruins. This, perhaps, was an opportunity. Chapter 71, Maeda-Rumi, come and fight him. However, after some thought, remembering the chasm between the two and Mainjutsu Hazuki, the vast disparity in physical strength between them and Mainjutsu Hazuki, Mei's face immediately fell. She frowned and let out more breath of despair. See, I'm saying, why don't we figure out how to escape? Even if he's truly a madman bent on destroying everything, we're no match for him. The Hazuki family's secret techniques are practically unbreakable in this environment. Uchiha Chi shook his head, his eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at Mainjutsu Hazuki, who had already used water healing techniques to heal his wounds. The man's face was clearly brimming with rage, his murderous aura practically freezing the surface of the water. Yet, no subtitles appeared before his eyes. Thinking of the implications of this situation, Uchiha Chi's expression grew slightly strange. He patted Mei's shoulder and said, "It's okay. I believe you." Huh? What are you talking about? Maeda-Rumi asked, blushing. Is now the time for such talk? However, Uchiha Chi pointed at the devil-like, ferocious-looking Hazuki Mainjutsu and said to Terumi Mei with a look of trust, "Terumi Mei, you come and fight him." Terumi Mei blinked, raised her head, and stared blankly at Uchiha Chi. Did I hear wrong, or is this guy kidding me? Me, against Hazuki Mainjutsu? What can I do to fight him? Uchiha Chi took a deep breath and spoke solemnly, Kirigakure is not my home, I'm not in a position to help you solve your problems from your perspective, but I can tell you what to do. Uchiha Chi's face darkened, and he continued in a deep voice, assassinate the third Mizukage, overthrow the regime, and seize power. This is just the first step. After this, you must intimidate the daimyo. Kill him and replace him, and stabilize the finances, then, wage war and plunder. Turn the conflict outward, and then suppress rebellion with iron-blooded force. Conduct a major reshuffle. Build a nation that revolves around your will. If you can't even do this, Kirigakure's current situation will only continue. Uchiha Chi's clear voice fell, and a sudden silence fell on the scene. Whether it was Madarumi, Maingetsu Hazuki, or the 5 ninjas maintaining the water style, Kirasame, they all looked at Uchiha Chi with shock. After hearing only the first sentence, they thought Uchiha Chi's words were nothing special. After all, from the Warring States period to the present, the power struggles of major forces have always been conducted in this way. Including Kirasame, who now represents the will of all ninjas in Kirigakure, and the Elders Council, who represent the interests of the bloodline families. What they want to do is nothing more than this. But from the second sentence on, the meaning of the words took a 180-degree turn. Using the power of ninjas to control the daimyo and control the economy of an entire country. This is unthinkable for those living in the current ninja world. It is a complete and utter treason. Ninjas, since their inception, have been a profession that exists by accepting missions and completing commissions. Letting this group of people with superb martial arts control a country, can they do it? Terumi Mei and Hazuki Maingetsu couldn't help but ponder this question. The other 5 Shuinins' expressions changed drastically beneath their masks. One of the older Shuinin immediately shouted at Hazuki Maingetsu, kill him, kill this rebellious lunatic. If the daimyo gets wind of this, it will bring disaster to Kirigakure. Once the daimyo is abolished, this country will immediately fall apart, inviting the other 4 nations to attack and divide up the water country. Don't even think about it, quick, kill him. However, Hazuki Maingetsu didn't move, merely frowning slightly and looking up at Uchiha Chi. Madarumi, standing beside Uchiha Chi, also glanced at him, eager to hear his answer. The establishment of the one country, one village system had its significance. Just like the relationship between the Fire Country and Konoha, Konoha is merely a larger armed group within the Fire Country, but Konoha is not the Fire Country's only option. With the right funds, other non-Konoha ninja clans, as well as ninja villages and clans from other countries, could readily serve the Fire Country. For example, in the future, the reason Tsunagakure betrayed Konoha and joined forces with Itagakure to attack Konoha was because the Wind Country frequently hired Konoha ninjas to steal their missions. The same applies to the Uchiha clan, who accepted the mission from the daimyo of Lightning Country, guarding Hell Valley and protecting the Blood Pond clan. Overthrowing a nation might not only face a counterattack from the daimyo, but also a terrifying attack from the entire ninja world, driven by the collective spending of daimyo from all other nations, who feel the need to be on their own. Therefore, a ninja village coup to seize control of a major nation is fundamentally unrealistic. The risks are too great, and the benefits are greater than the disadvantages. This is also the consensus of today's ninja. However, Uchiha Chi shook his head, looked at the chase ninja, and sneered, if you're talking about the 4 kingdoms of wind, fire, earth, and thunder, then of course you're right, but you're Kirigakure, you're the isolated water kingdom, surrounded by the natural dangers of the sea. Everyone was stunned at this. What he said seemed to have some truth to it. The water country's geography, unlike other nations, is easily defended and difficult to attack. Aside from a few key docks where the terrain is relatively flat, a large portion of the main island is comprised of towering mountains. As long as Kirigakure holds these key docks and strategic locations, a cross-sea attack on Kirigakure village and a division of the water country's territory would be incredibly difficult. Then, Uchiha Chi looked at Terumi Mei seriously and said in a deep voice, I remember you once said that you have goals that you must accomplish for your hometown. You believe that your hometown has a better way out, and you think the existing system is wrong. Since you love your hometown so much, then do it, at all costs. You must take action first, no matter whether the future becomes a pile of shit or a ruin. Even if the person standing in front of you is an evil spirit who is eager to overthrow Kirigakure and kill his master, he can become your strength. So, this is your battle. Uchiha Chi's eyes condensed, pointing at Maingetsu Kazuki, and said solemnly to Terumi Mei, from the night you declared war on me, I knew that you were eager to step onto the brightest stage in the ninja world. Now, one of the most talented people in the entire ninja world is standing in front of us. To be honest, I'm not sure I can defeat him, and I can't even cover your escape. Of course, I will fight to the last moment and try to save you from here. After saying this, Uchiha Chi's eyes condensed. He drew his ninja sword with his backhand, gripping the hilt with both hands. Without turning back, he declared, what to do is entirely up to you. I trust you. He would not forget that Hazuki Maingetsu possessed a secret scroll of the 7 ninja swords summoning. Simply summoning the 7 ninja swords instantly launched him into the second stage, not to mention the third stage, which included mermaid mode. The super death battle barrier couldn't contain a cage-level powerhouse like this one. And Uchiha Chi's full arsenal of shuriken, ninjutsu, taijutsu, kenjutsu, and even forbidden techniques couldn't harm a foe so focused on his complete disregard for physical damage. It was a despairing feeling of being completely crushed from all sides. But it didn't matter. In this desperate situation, Uchiha Chi still had his teammates. Thank you to the Godfathers for your monthly votes, and thank you to the gentlemen for your recommendations. Please bookmark, recommend, and read on. Bang, bang, bang. Chapter 72, Remarks on the Release. It's a bit sudden, but it will be released this Friday. I still hope that my Godfathers can support me by subscribing. Thanks. Bang bang bang. Chapter 73, Water Waves Burst and Water Blade Swirl. In a dark corner of the hall, upon hearing Uchiha Chi's speech, Uchiha Madara, leaning on his cane, couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. Assassinating the Mizukage, instigating a coup, controlling the daimyo, and starting a war, HMPH, what a boastful brat, Uchiha Madara chuckled, as if seeing a reflection of himself in the face of the brat before him. But his expression quickly returned to composure, and he commented calmly, however, mere verbal arguments are pointless, power is different from will, it is the interaction of matter. If you don't understand this, all unnecessary thoughts will only add to your suffering. White Zetsu, standing by, gave a strange grin. Madara-sama, it's been a long time since I've seen you show interest in someone, do you want to include him in your observation list? Uchiha Madara glanced at the scene, his Sharingan lighting up as he examined Uchiha Chi for a few moments, then frowned. Let's wait and see. This was the first time since the Warring States period that he had seen such a strange expression. He was clearly terrified of death, yet his eyes and body yearned to fight to the death. And this look was anything but bravery in the common sense. Cowardice and the desire for death combined in the same person at the same moment. Amidst such intense emotional turmoil, he was nothing but a worthless Tumagatama-worthy wretch. This combination of good and bad qualities left him perplexed for a moment. On the field, stepping into the well-filled water, Terumi Mae gazed at the back of Uchiha Chi standing before her. Silence fell for a moment. Rain poured down inside the house, the splashes bouncing off the water like pearls on a plate. She understood, of course, that Uchiha Chi was merely a victim caught up in the Kurigakure internal strife. Yet, this young man stood before Terumi Mae, declaring with such determination that he would fight to the bitter end and try to rescue her. Just minutes earlier, he had been swearing and mocking her with a heartless expression, uttering nonsense about severing ties with her. Terumi wasn't sure what was going on inside her, but a smile suddenly spread across her face. She looked at the boy before her, and couldn't help but curl the corners of her lips. Sure enough, this was a dishonest fool. With this thought, Terumi's eyes fixed, and she took a step forward. Her emerald green eyes swept over Meijetsu Kazuki and the 5 ninjas, instantly imagining the battle scenario in her mind. Her expression was calm, and her eyes gradually grew colder. Terumi, who could one day end the Blood Mist coup and become the 5th Mizukage, though still young, was by no means mediocre. See, Terumi said quietly, her brow furrowed. I have 4 chakra attributes. While I'm not proficient in lightning release, I do have some ninjutsu reserves, so, I'll hold Meijetsu back. You must interrupt their water release, cut rain, otherwise the battle will only get harder. Besides, this is a gamble. We can only bet that your deduction is correct. Otherwise, once we have access to a large amount of water, Meijetsu will be able to unleash his other secret technique, and our chances of victory will be extremely slim. Okay, Uchiha Chi nodded, looking up at the 5 nearby ninjas with a cold gaze. He knew the other ninjutsu that Terumi was referring to, water release, Taitaboshi. Once there was a large amount of water, Meijetsu would be able to unleash this technique, transforming into Gundam Pilot, piloting a massive water monster comparable in size to the 8 Tails in full form. At that point, the enemy might not even need to summon the 7 ninja swords summoning scroll, they would be defeated. Upon hearing Uchiha Chi's response, Terumi's eyes darkened, and she formed hand seals, ugly snake weak. Water style, mist hidden jutsu. She opened her mouth and exhaled, a thick mist instantly rising, spreading across the entire hall. Using the dense fog, she pulled a kunai from the ninja tool bag hanging from Uchiha Chi's waist, formed the sea seal, and condensed a water blade. hurling it at Hazuki Mainjutsu. Suddenly, following the swung water blade, Terumi Mae leaped into the air, forming a series of hand seals with both hands, gathering chakra at the back of her throat, and expelled a massive wave of water towards the ground, crashing towards Hazuki Mainjutsu. Water style, exploding water wave. Hazuki Mainjutsu observed this, his expression unmoved, instead revealing a hint of a sneer. The distant ninjas, hearing the commotion, smirked in triumph, taunting, "Terumi Mae, have you lost your mind? You're actually using exploding water wave to attack Mainjutsu, who possesses the water transformation jutsu. You're simply courting death." Terumi Mae scoffed. How about this? She formed hand seals once more, channeling a surge of chakra despite the weakening effect of the rain of cutting rain. She generated lightning from her hands, blasting them towards the exploding waves. Lightning flashes from the lightning release, ground release blasted along with the exploding water wave, striking Hazuki Mainjutsu. Boom! A tsunami-like wave of water instantly surged in all directions, cleaving the battlefield. White mist filled the air, waves surged wildly. Amidst the whiteness, a pair of crimson eyes suddenly lit up. Uchiha Chi, already prepared, channeled chakra into his feet, stepped on the waves, and was propelled towards the 5 ninjas performing the water transformation, rain of cutting rain jutsu at the end of the hall. Simple coordination with Madarumi resulted in a water-style wave riding attack-like effect. Riding on the crest of the wave, Uchiha Chi leaped into the air, unleashing a massive shuriken and hurling it at the genin. Using the momentum, he spun with a powerful, brick-like flying sword technique, sending his swords blasting outwards. He then swung out 2 kunai with thread, piercing the hall's pillars. Using both hands to deflect his fall, he drew a semicircle and leaped down in the other direction. With a backhanded kunai, he spun a blade flower in his hand and lunged towards the 5 genin. The elder genin heard footsteps, looked up in alarm, and shouted, "Look out! That kid's coming for us!" To the left, before he could finish his words, a barrage of shurikens pierced the white mist and blasted from the right. The elder genin's eyes widened, and he drew his ninja sword to block it. The clang. However, hidden within the rain of shurikens, a ninja sword suddenly ripped through the air. With a swoosh, it pierced his throat, muffling his roar. "Dang, you bravely charged at a Chunin who thought you were arrogant." Heart upgrade, water, 100%. You have mastered the transformation of water attribute chakra. You have learned water style, water cutting technique, beginner, C. The remaining 4 Chunin stared wide-eyed, bewildered as Uchiha Chi charged from the left. However, the situation was urgent, and one Chunin shouted, "I'll maintain the secret technique. You guys deal with this brat first." The other 3 nodded, steadied themselves on the water, and with a jerk of their hands, they unleashed a chakra whip. Snap! The tips of the 3 whips flared with a sonic boom, suddenly wrapping around Uchiha Chi, blocking all his escape. This was water style, water flow whip. It can form a whip out of water, binding the enemy and immobilizing them, with a powerful binding effect. However, Uchiha Chi did not dodge, but instead pulled a kunai from his ninja tool bag and charged forward. His pupils reflected the 3 incoming water whips, and he quickly formed seals with his hands. Maui Si. Water style, water fang blade. The water blade lit up, and after fully mastering the changes in the properties of water, this water blade became even more condensed and sharper. The water in the blade spun violently at a terrifying speed, squeaking and making strange noises. Then, Uchiha Chi suddenly swung the blade, drawing a moon-like arc of light. Thank you to the Godfathers for your monthly votes, and thank you to the gentlemen for your recommendation votes. Please collect, recommend, and read. Bang bang bang. Chapter 74, The Powerful Flying Sword Technique Has a New Way Out, Sharingan Replication. Uchiha Chi stomped his feet, swung his water blade, and with a single blow of the Uchiha Ryu, Setsunaku slash, the 3 long whips were instantly severed. Then, he bent forward, swung his hand, and unleashed the water blade. The 3 chasing ninjas were unprepared for Uchiha Chi's direct hurling of the water blade. An ordinary kunai instantly transformed into an enchanted one. Seeing the strange, squeaking water blades entwined within it, they dared not block with their ordinary kunai, but scattered like birds and beasts. Seeing this, Uchiha Chi felt as if a new world had opened up, his vision brightening. This powerful flying sword technique, combined with the ability to create a blade at will, was truly remarkable. He quickly drew another kunai, formed a hand seal, and, knife in hand, reappeared in pursuit. The three chasing ninjas couldn't help but curse inwardly. This kid's either Shuriken Jutsu or Shuriken Jutsu. He finally managed to master a ninjutsu, but he managed to make it look like Shuriken Jutsu. Come on, you bastard. You're not even a ninja. They formed hand seals as they ran, preparing to strike Uchiha Chi with a powerful blow. However, to their surprise, Uchiha Chi, who was supposed to be behind them, was already in front of them. His feet treaded on a pool of water, and he leaned back, his hands tugging on a jet black thread. He glided across the surface like a sharp arrow. Water style, water cutting technique. This water style ninjutsu uses concentrated water to glide rapidly, even on dry ground. After Madarumi had transformed the battlefield into a watery battlefield, this technique significantly enhanced his mobility. Landing in front of and behind the three, Uchiha Chi swung his leg, unleashing a stream of water blades. He then flipped in midair and drew his water fang blade. Using the physical kick techniques he'd copied from Kikuzu, and the water blade enchanted with both water style, water fang blade and the sword technique, chakra attachment, he swiftly cut through the three, slashing in a circular motion. With a single strike, a crimson moon rose. Two men were instantly struck down. The other narrowly dodged, his expression stern as he attempted to form hand seals and perform some jutsu. However, Uchiha Chi glared. His Sharingan focused, and his two Magatama spun rapidly, tracking the seals formed by the opponent and the direction of chakra flow within his body. He followed suit, forming seals, Si Wei Wu Mao, even faster than the opponent. Damn it, boy, die, Zhu Ren roared in anger, raising his hand abruptly. Water style, water prison, however, a roar echoed even faster than his own. Water style, water prison jutsu, Uchiha Chi raised his hand abruptly, unleashing a water style, water prison jutsu half a second before the idiot in front of him. A water-filled bubble instantly expanded from his palm, enveloping the opponent and trapping him. Gurgle, 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 the chaser's eyes widened in shock, his face thick with choking water, his arms and legs flailing wildly. He thought, you're an Uchiha? How come you're better at water style than us Kirigakure? Where's your fire style? Did you manage it? Uchiha Chi finally breathed a sigh of relief, wiped the sweat from his forehead, his heart pounding as he quickly stabbed the water fang blade into the blister for a finishing blow. If that birdman hadn't said that, his second Magatama Sharingan wouldn't have been able to replicate ninjutsu as quickly as the other one. It scared the crap out of me. I almost thought I was going to die. Luckily, I was a step ahead. In the water style, cut rain environment, all ninjutsu except water style were weakened, and constantly using earth style, earth spear would obviously not be able to keep up with the chakra depletion rate. So, he could only risk using water style and taijutsu to engage the opponent. But the unexpected upgrade to his heart not only restored his water element but also gave him a deeper understanding of water escape techniques. It was a pleasant surprise. At this point, only one ninja remained on the field, still maintaining his secret technique. He heard only a burst of clattering noises outside, interspersed with shouts, before silence descended. The silence frightened him, and cold sweat streamed down his face. Then, the mist dissipated. A young man, covered in ketchup, pierced through the mist, wielding a sword and a beautiful, shimmering water blade. The ninja, still maintaining his secret technique, tensed his muscles, and cold sweat instantly covered his back. His mask etched a look of fear. He immediately stopped maintaining the water release, cutting rain seal, retreating with hesitant steps. Uchiha Chi, without saying a word, turned and ran back into the mist. The clattering footsteps echoed in the ninja's ears, overwhelming him with psychological pressure, as if a monster, preying on prey, lurched within the mist. He glanced nervously around, suddenly alert, and instantly shouted, "Mainjutsu, save me!" At that moment, a water blade suddenly pierced the white mist and shot out with a roar. On the other side of the battlefield, a sweat-soaked Madarumi was continuously forming hand seals and unleashing ninjutsu to block Mainjutsu's approach. She was a turret-type ninja, with a vast chakra reserve, and her ninjutsu was like a machine gun. Water and dissolution techniques were constantly being unleashed, and in enclosed environments, she could unleash boiling ninjutsu to blend into the surrounding white mist for protection. Regardless of whether it worked or not, she aimed to cover the enemy with fire first, hoping to buy time before her chakra ran out. However, a voice from the mist and the sudden cessation of the rain-cutting technique caused the two men fighting to look up simultaneously, both startled. Those were 5 ninjas. 5 ninjas. Even if they were useless, charging forward like guard brothers saving their grandfather, they wouldn't be defeated so quickly, right? And how long had it been? 1 minute, or 2? Maingetsu Kazuki's brow furrowed as he dove into the water, disappearing in an instant. Uchiha Chi seized the opponent's opening and launched a fierce water blade. He had already unsheathed his ninja sword from another ninja's neck. He immediately slid his sword through the water, wielding it towards the opposing ninja, ready to quickly end the battle and rush to Maedarumi's aid. However, at that moment, bang, a sharp, piercing gunshot rang out. A high-speed water bullet suddenly shot out, piercing Uchiha Chi's hurled water blade. The kunai embedded in the water blade hit the target with pinpoint accuracy, sending it flying. Then, a white-haired figure suddenly leaped from the water and stabbed Uchiha Chi in the back. Facing a fatal threat, Uchiha Chi felt his scalp tingle. Instinctively, he executed a head-wrapping and shoulder-wrapping sword technique, a technique he had only seen in videos in his previous life, blocking the blow with his back. Bang! Sparks flew. This kid's reaction is so quick. Hazuki Maingetsu raised an eyebrow slightly, but didn't take it too seriously. He immediately used the Hyoshu arm technique, increasing his strength and forcing the blade forward. However, with this impact as a buffer, Uchiha Chi had already unleashed Earth-style, Earth Spear, hardening the area on his back that was about to be stabbed. Without the weakening of Water-style, Fearsome, the strength of this hardening technique was simply off the charts. Bang! Hazuki Maingetsu felt like he had struck a piece of diamond even harder than the previous one, and the blade suddenly snapped with a snap. Uchiha Chi immediately seized this opportunity and struck down the ninja in front of him with a single blow. Only then did he turn around and sneer at Hazuki Maingetsu, who was stunned, holding the broken blade in front of him. "You're the Kurigakure prodigy, right? What, didn't you eat? Thank you to the godfathers for your monthly votes, and thank you to the gentlemen for your recommendations. Please bookmark, recommend, and read." Bang bang bang. Chapter 75, Strong Confrontation, Gundam appears. As Uchiha Chi's voice fell, the field suddenly cleared. All 5 Kurigakure ninjas were cut down, leaving only Hazuki Maingetsu alone in the team chasing Yagura and intercepting Terumi Mei. The torrential rain abruptly stopped, the dark clouds shrouding the castle dissipated, and the surging waves subsided for a moment. A beam of sunlight penetrated the dome, refracting off the water and the dome's colorful glass, illuminating the entire hall. Uchiha Madara, silently watching the battle, shook his head. Jumping up and down, his dancing skills are barely passable. Then, he opened his crimson eyes and stared at Uchiha Chi in the arena with amusement. "But what are you going to do next?" Facing the brat of the Hazuki family, behind Uchiha Madara, the third Mizukage, caught in a Jinjutsu, spoke indifferently. "With just 2 Magatama, you probably can't even force Maingetsu's ninja katana out. You'll die here. Maingetsu is the successor I'm training as the next Mizukage. Naturally, he's no match for a brat like that." With that, in the hall below, a subtitle suddenly flashed. "The third Mizukage expresses disdain for you." Uchiha Chi was startled by the sudden appearance of a subtitle. He quickly glanced around, but fortunately, no one was in sight. Speechless for a moment, he could only temporarily dismiss it as a subtitle bug. Otherwise, it would be too annoying. "In just 2 days, I've already run into 4 or 5 cage-level masters along the way. If another one showed up, especially at this crucial juncture where he had to rescue Maedarumi and rewind the plot before he could continue his suicidal quest, it would be too much to handle." He turned around, took a deep breath, cleared his mind of distractions, and looked solemnly at Maingetsu Hazuki before him. While he might taunt the enemy strategically, he must still take them seriously tactically. Maingetsu glanced at the broken sword in his hand, his eyes narrowing slightly. He had never seen such a powerful hardening technique before, far more powerful than the Earth-style hardening technique he had seen. The added force of the Water-style Great Water Arm technique hadn't hurt this brat at all, and instead, his own ninja sword had been shattered. Understanding this, he immediately leaped back, raising his hands like pistols. He unleashed the Water-style water cannon technique on the brat's vital points. This secret ninjutsu, passed down through generations of the Hazuki clan, involves shaping one's hand like a pistol, firing liquid bullets from the tip of one's index finger, piercing the enemy. Unsealed, instantaneous, and possessing immense penetrating power, it was used by the second Mizukage, Hazuki Jinjutsu, who nearly dispatched the third Hokage, Inoki, with a single shot. Bang! 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 4 water bullets blasted out in rapid succession. Uchiha Chi's Sharingan flickered, attempting to track the trajectory of the technique, but the water cannons were fired too quickly, and at close range, his eyes couldn't follow. He could only instinctively activate Earth Style, Earth Spear, instinctively sensing danger. Bang! 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 The sound echoed, like a bullet striking an iron wall. The instant the hardening ended, Uchiha Chi quickly formed hand seals, then with his backhand drew a wildly swirling water blade and slashed at the approaching Hazuki Mainjutsu, interrupting his attempt to fire another water cannon. At the same time, he glared and roared. Jinjutsu, Sharingan. Hazuki Mainjutsu's heart skipped a beat at the sound, and he instantly lost sight of her, performing a backflip and transforming the area about to be struck into water. Uchiha Chi seized this opportunity, unleashing 4 shurikens with his backhand, simultaneously forcing his sword to reverse and lash out. Swish! 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 The ninja tools tore through the air, blasting towards Hazuki Mainjutsu. He then launched himself into the air, and the water carry no jutsu wrapped around his foot slashed a blade of water, slicing towards his opponent's throat. This flurry of attacks caught Hazuki Mainjutsu off guard, forcing him to retreat. Even after transforming into water in time, the shuriken still slashed his arms. In this exchange, Uchiha Chi unexpectedly gained the upper hand. However, his expression showed no sign of relief, instead, it grew even more solemn. He was able to inflict damage on Hazuki Mainjutsu only by relying on his reflexes to compensate for his shortcomings. A sneer flickered across Hazuki Mainjutsu's face as he was forced back. After the initial probing, he had completely seen through the Uchiha brat before him. He possessed exceptionally fast reflexes, dazzling shuriken techniques, and seemingly impressive physical skills, even possessing an incredibly powerful earth-style ninjutsu. He excelled at feinting to the east and employing underhanded tactics, making him quite annoying. However, these strengths couldn't mask his lack of a decisive move. Furthermore, Hazuki Mainjutsu had seized upon a flaw. The brat's seemingly outrageous hardening technique wasn't invulnerable, its use inevitably caused stiffness. Using this technique would actually restrain the opponent's exceptionally strong reflexes. Hazuki Mainjutsu bowed slightly, his gaze growing colder as he slowly withdrew a scroll from his back. Uchiha Chi's gaze fixed on him, and he immediately reached for his leggings. There, too, was a scroll, one that sealed the Zero Tail's dark chakra. It was enough to activate his dark chakra state and, combined with his earth spear, unleash a super active punch. However, at that moment, Terumi suddenly appeared, blocking Uchiha Chi's attempt to draw the scroll with her body, and holding his wrist with her hands behind her back. She tilted her head, meeting Uchiha Chi's gaze with her clear, emerald green eyes, and spoke solemnly, "Not yet, your guess is correct. Leave the rest to me." Her tone was firm, her eyes determined, as she asked, "Uchiha Chi, can you trust me?" Uchiha Chi frowned slightly, and after a moment's silence, he nodded. Terumi immediately turned, her expression darkening. She addressed Hazuki Mainjutsu before her, speaking in a clear voice, "Let's stop here, Hazuki Mainjutsu, there's no point in continuing." Hazuki Mainjutsu raised an eyebrow and glared at Terumi coldly. "Meaning? How do you define meaning?" "I'm here to kill you, to kill Yagura, the one you serve." His face was calm and indifferent. He swung open the 7 ninja swords summoning secret scroll, in his hand, double, large, thunder, break, long, explosion, blunt. 7 circular sealing codes suddenly appeared. Hazuki Mainjutsu held the scroll as waves gradually surged beneath his feet, lifting him up. Standing on the water platform, he looked down at the two and asked coldly, "What? Do you think you've won just by eliminating these 5 burdens?" With his words, the water surged underwater. And the water platform grew higher and higher, gradually draining all the water from the ground. Then, boom! The surface of the water platform collapsed, and a water monster, over 10 meters tall, broke free. Its sharp teeth and ferocious features caused the hall to rumble with every movement, and dust rained down from the dome. Water style, Teitaboshi. This water monster, born from the secret technique of the Hazuki family, suddenly revealed itself before the two men. Hazuki Mainjutsu stood high above the miniature Gundam, holding a scroll. His single purple eye glared down at the two men coldly, and he said indifferently, The game has only just begun. Thank you, my godfathers, for your monthly passes, and thank you, my gentlemen, for your recommendations. Please bookmark, recommend, and read again. Bang, bang, bang. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.